With Gary Franchi here at the Next News Network. We're streaming live on X at Next News and with Trump Daily Post on our flagship YouTube channel as well as on Rumble. It is 6:33 p.m. in Washington, District of Columbia, 97 degrees. It was a hot one in Washington, D.C. And now we are going to go to Tom McCullough, who is in the briefing room today, who has some breaking developments with respect to President Trump's speech and the media. Tom is our White House correspondent on the ground. Tom, what did you hear today while you were at the White House with respect to the media broadcasting the president's speech tonight?
So, fake news media that's the first 4 years of Trump's administration talking about was an illegitimate president and business being president, Russian interference, fraud, all those things. Tonight, President Trump is making an Oval Address at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and yes, NBC and now ABC are all three public broadcast funded companies with broadcasting licenses, and they're all three refusing to air President Trump. And these are the same outlets that spent 4 years of Trump's administration talking about how illegitimate he is. What do you think about that, Gary?
It sounds like they're going to get their broadcast license revoked. I'm sure they have some public duty to present the administration's positions, especially if it's coming from an official White House address. Any word on that?
Well, President Trump and ABC, NBC, and CBS, since he took office again, pulled their licenses, their public broadcast licenses for airing false and counter-narrative facts, and they were airing Iranian state as a verified media source to the American public in direct contradiction to the Trump administration. Now, we have obligations under that same broadcasting license to air any office address or any speech made by the United States of America. If they refuse to air that and to 100 million American citizens on actual evidence that Trump is declassifying at 6:30 p.m. Eastern, which 7 minutes ago he just declassified their investigation that they had into election, and they're going to make that ready for public consumption. They have every reason to believe that they can't get their license over this for refusing the president's message to the American, which is why they have a public broadcasting in the first place.
All right, Tom, thank you so much for that update. And we're going to get into our official White House rundown. Thanks for everything you're doing out there for us in the swamp on that hot day. So good evening. I'm Gary Franchi, Next News Network Chief White House Correspondent, delivering the latest White House news from the past 24 hours in partnership with our streaming team at Trump Daily Post. The big headline tonight: President Trump put national strength and American industries at center stage, spotlighting nearly $10 billion in new private investment tied to Pennsylvania's defense industrial base and thousands of jobs, while also doubling down on ICE enforcement and setting up a 9 p.m. Eastern address to the nation on election integrity. As you heard just now, that major networks are refusing to broadcast it. We will do our best to broadcast it to you here tonight live. Now here's your full White House rundown. According to the daily guidance, the president's Thursday began with executive time at 8 a.m. at the White House. The schedule then moved into an Oval Office meeting with Senator Darlene Graham at 9:30, followed by an 11 a.m. Oval Office meeting with the president of El Salvador. The afternoon included a 1 p.m. press briefing, a 2 p.m. policy meeting, a 5 p.m. signing time in the Oval, and tonight's 9 p.m. address, the on-camera address to the nation from the East Room. And from the pool report today, White House Press Secretary Karoline Leavitt opened the afternoon briefing at 1:19 p.m. During that session, she announced that President Trump will attend the FIFA World Cup final on Sunday in New Jersey, where Spain will face Argentina. It was a straightforward scheduling update, but one that has put the president on hand for a major international event on American soil. The briefing wrapped at 1:58 p.m. after Karoline fielded about 40 questions, including questions tied to the president's address tonight and the conflict in Iran. The length and scope of the exchange underscored an administration staying visibly engaged across domestic and foreign policy fronts. Over the past 24 hours, the White House message stayed firmly focused on results. President Trump's Pennsylvania Defense and Innovation Summit at the U.S. Army War College in Carlisle showcased peace through strength, defense modernization, and Pennsylvania's role as an arsenal of freedom. The summit highlighted nearly $10 billion in new private investment expected to create more than 4,000 jobs, including major commitments from General Dynamics, Lockheed Martin, Hanwha Defense USA, and a massive Blackstone pledge of more than $40 billion over 5 years. The White House also pushed the broader point that defense investment in Pennsylvania stands roughly 25% higher than under the prior administration. The president also used the day to back ICE officers without hesitation, calling traffic stops one of the most important and effective crime-fighting tools and making clear that retreat is not happening on his watch. He paired that law and order message with a preview of tonight's national address on elections, voter fraud concerns, voting machines, and election integrity. In a White House statement today, the Trump administration also launched a global campaign to crush radical left terrorism. Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller framed the effort as a full-scale push to cut off funding, dismantle networks, and coordinate internationally against Antifa-linked violence and other left-wing extremist activity. So taken together, the last 24 hours show a White House pressing on several fronts at once, rebuilding American industry, reinforcing law enforcement, tightening national security, and keeping the president squarely in command of the national agenda. And that's your White House rundown for the day. And now let's move from the White House file to the rest of today's top stories. We've got a lot of news we've got to cover as we anxiously await the president's remarks today. We're going to try to bring those to you live, despite the embargo by the mainstream press, which is not surprising. So we're going to get into the first story with respect to what's going on and the president's remarks tonight and some of the reaction that's already happening here, and remarks from the press secretary earlier today from the briefing room. Chuck Schumer blurted the tale before Trump even spoke. Quote, Trump may control the microphone tonight, but he will not control the verdict in November. That's not confidence, that's panic from a man who knows Trump is forcing the country to stare straight at one of the scam Democrats cannot defend in daylight. And this fight comes down to one thing, whether the American citizen still owns his vote. Well, JD Vance put it with surgical force. A single ballot cast illegally in an American election is in fact the theft of the ballot from another American citizen. Mike Lee drove the spike even deeper. Every non-citizen vote disenfranchises a citizen. Chuck Schumer, Karoline Leavitt, the Save America Act, all of it lands right there. If blue state machines drag counts for weeks and treat voter ID like a hate crime, they're not expanding democracy. They are diluting your ballot and stealing your voice. And breaking tonight, near-record tungsten prices are intensifying pressure on Washington as the United States races to rebuild its critical mineral supply chain. Tungsten is now a tungsten national security priority used in fighter jets, tanks, missiles, drones, and ammunition. Yet there's been no U.S. commercial tungsten mining since 2015. Project Vault includes a $12 billion strategic stockpile with $30 billion domestic production support. While the Pentagon has directed millions towards restarting U.S. tungsten production, Vault Strategic Mining is assembling historic tungsten assets across mining-friendly U.S. jurisdictions, acquiring proven former mines and applying modern exploration techniques for reliable supply outside of China. Its flagship in Nevada's Great Basin, a historically productive tungsten region, includes a defense-related exploration contract from the Second World War and approximately 10,000 feet of drilling. KNOX in Canada and KNXFF in the United States. Check out the Next News intelligence briefing that has been prepared just for you, and it is linked below. So Schumer didn't just attack the speech, he attacked it before hearing a word of it. Now stack that panic against Karoline Leavitt, saying that Trump's findings will shock you and should be aired so Americans can draw their own conclusions. The media should air the speech. That is what the press secretary said today in the briefing room. Let's go to those remarks.
Karoline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Contrary to what the mainstream media is reporting, Americans that I speak to care deeply about election integrity.
This is true.
Why do you think the mainstream media is so fearful of tonight's speech and anything to do with election interference? And why are they attempting to discredit President Trump's speech before they even heard it? And lastly, what's your message to AOC, who is asking for President Trump, the mainstream media, to actually censor the sitting president's speech tonight?
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media should air the president's speech and allow the American people to draw their own conclusions from it. Again, I think it's important that the American public hears directly from the President of the United States on a topic that, to your point, is very near and dear to the hearts of many Americans across the country, the integrity of our elections. This should be a nonpartisan, non-controversial issue, and I think you'll hear the President talk about that tonight. So we'll see you then.
So Leavitt called out the media for trying to discredit Trump before he even speaks. Now she doubles down, saying the facts in the address will shock anyone willing to look honestly.
Well, first of all, Garrett, I think part of the problem is that the media has refused to acknowledge that tens of millions of Americans across the country share the concerns of this president about the sanctity of our elections. And your premise of your question, you're jumping ahead to a conclusion in this speech before even hearing it yourself. I think that everyone should tune in tonight, including the people in this room, and you should report on the president's speech and the findings that he is going to reveal in this speech with a little bit of honesty and a little bit of integrity, because it will shock you if you have an honest eye listening to the president tonight, and everything he is saying will be backed by facts and by evidence that will be provided this evening. And again, Garrett, I think all Americans, Democrat, Republican, should agree that we are the greatest country in the history of the world. We should have the safest and most secure elections in the history of the world. And what the president will be speaking about tonight will show you that perhaps that is not the case, and we need to make some adjustments moving forward, including the Save America Act, as Rachel pointed out, is a key legislative priority for this president on Capitol Hill, and he wants to see all senators and members of Congress voting in favor of the Save America Act, because it's crucially important as we move forward.
So she wasn't done there. She next says Americans will be relieved by Trump's transparency. It reminds both parties that secure elections should be basic and not controversial.
I would encourage everyone to tune in tonight. I've seen a lot of reporting and frankly misreporting about what the president will say. I think the American people will be relieved to hear what they are hearing from the president of the United States and his commitment to transparency and the focus on the integrity of our elections tonight. I think all Republicans and Democrats should recognize this should be a nonpartisan issue. If we don't have safe and secure elections in our country, we cannot have a country. It is a vital part of our democracy, of our constitutional republic. The president will be speaking about that tonight. And in addition, at the very same time, of course, he is working on all of these economic issues that the American people have at home. I just read to you the latest inflation numbers are looking good, the best report in 6 years. The president, Republicans and Democrats and all Americans have this president to thank for the largest tax cuts in American history, which every Democrat on Capitol Hill voted against. You have this president to thank for the Trump accounts for our children and securing the future of the American dream. So this president is doing a lot, but obviously safe and secure elections are a true tenet of our constitutional republic, and the president will be speaking about that tonight.
And we're looking forward to those remarks. So while the White House is pushing transparency and election security, Chuck Schumer is already in panic mode. Watch him melt down on the Senate floor before Trump even delivers his speech.
Mr. President, Donald Trump's election speech tonight is not about the election Trump lost 6 years ago. It is a threat against the election he is afraid to lose this November. Trump may control the microphone tonight, but he will not control the verdict in November. The voters will have the last word, and Senate Democrats will rebut Trump's lies every day. We will fight like hell to make sure Trump can't silence voters. Trump's primetime speech tonight isn't simply about relitigating his overwhelming defeat in the 2020 election. It's about undermining the 2026 election before a single vote has been cast. Trump won't expose anything of substance about 2020. He'll just echo the same stale, baseless, pathetic lies he's repeated for 6 years.
And of course, the media is going to continue to parrot your lies, Chuck Schumer. He says nobody believes Trump, but here's the problem for Democrats. Joe Biden said foreign interference in American elections is real. Let's roll the tape from 2020, shall we?
No matter who it is that interferes in American elections will pay a price. They will pay a price. And it's been overwhelmingly clear this election, I won't even get into the last one, this election, that Russia has been involved, China has been involved to some degree, and now we learn that Iran is involved. They will pay a price if I'm elected.
And President Trump vowing the same thing. So Biden admitted Russia, China, Iran can interfere and should pay a price. Now JD Vance takes it a step further, arguing even one illegal ballot steals a lawful American's vote.
Yeah. You mentioned that the administration's top priority right now is passing the Save America Act. Even if it were passed tomorrow, there's not enough time for it to be implemented before voting starts for the November midterm elections. That being said, will the administration support the results of the midterm elections come November, regardless of what they look like?
Well, look, of course, we're going to support the results of the midterm elections. We think we're going to win, but ultimately that's up to the American people. But we also think we have to do everything that we can to discourage cheating. Because you will hear Democrats sometimes say, and I love this line, I can't help but laugh at it, cheating isn't that frequent in American elections. Any frequency at all is a problem. A single ballot cast illegally in an American election is, in fact, the theft of the ballot from another American citizen, from an American citizen who deserves to be able to vote. So you're right. You know, the elections, in some ways, the process is already getting started for 2026, but you don't pass a piece of legislation because you think you're going to immediately benefit from it. You pass a piece of legislation because you think the American people are going to benefit from it over the long haul. We have to do it. Save America is not mainly about 2026, to your question. It's actually about saving America's elections well into the future.
Last question. Tomorrow the president's going to give this big speech on the elections. A lot of Republicans here want him to focus on the 2026 midterms and not to relitigate his claims about the 2020 elections. Would you encourage him to steer clear of those unfounded claims that he is actually the true victor of the 2020 elections?
I love these questions, the unfounded claims. You're basically assuming an answer in the very question that you ask. Manu, what I'd say is we can do a lot. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. We're doing so many things. We got the one big beautiful bill passed that cut taxes on Social Security, cut taxes on tips, cut taxes on overtime, delivered thousands of additional dollars into the pockets of the average American family. We're very proud of that. It's one of the things that we talked about in there was we need to talk about it more. We need to tell the American people all the amazing benefits that are in those working families' tax cuts. We also have a lot of other things going on in the country. The president's going to talk about a number of things tomorrow night. I'm obviously not going to get ahead of his remarks, but we can talk about a number of the American people's problems. We can solve a number of the American people's problems.
So Vance makes the case in plain English, election integrity isn't optional. And the Save America Act is about protecting every legal vote. Next, Senator Mike Lee explains why non-citizen voting disenfranchises with his tweet. Every non-citizen vote disenfranchises a citizen. That's why we need the Save America Act. And that's why Americans overwhelmingly support it. And he included these remarks from JD Vance.
Trump administration's priority is to actually get the Save America Act passed. We have the proudest and in some ways the oldest democracy anywhere in the world. 250 years we just celebrated, and yet if you vote in California, you're lucky if a month after the election day, your vote has actually been counted. We know.
So Mike Lee says Americans overwhelmingly back the Save America Act, which makes the next clip even more revealing. Thom Tillis now moving to block it, handing the swamp exactly what Democrats want. Thom Tillis has announced he's blocking the Save America Act, planning to vote nay if it's in the reconciliation package because SAVE is a waste of time and exercise in futility. That's according to Punch Bowl News. So that contrast is the whole indictment. Karoline Leavitt threw the doors open and said, air the speech, let the country hear it, let Americans draw their own conclusions. Chuck Schumer raced to the cameras first and tried to poison the jury before the evidence hit the table. Then Thom Tillis waddled in from the Republican side and called the Save America Act a waste of time and an exercise in futility. No, securing citizen-only elections is not futility. Blocking it is surrender. Chuck Schumer fears facts because secure elections wreck the Democrat power model. Thom Tillis exposes the softer disease in Washington establishment cowardice that caves right when backbone counts. Trump forced the fight. Schumer projected. Tillis buckled, and every honest voter in the country can see exactly who wants sunlight and who wants the curtain pulled shut. So remember that line, okay? The line that gave the game away. Trump may control the microphone tonight, but he will not control the verdict in November. Chuck Schumer thought it sounded tough. It actually sounded terrified. Terrified because Trump and the White House keep saying the same thing in plain English. Air the speech, show the facts, let the people judge. People who trust the truth do not beg for censorship before the first sentence lands. People who trust honest elections do not criminalize asking for ID. Shrug at non-citizen voting or let counts crawl for weeks in blue state chaos. And Republicans who take this seriously do not hide behind Thom Tillis calling the Save America Act an exercise in futility. Name him, shame him, and replace that weakness with people who put citizens first. And drop your take below. Send this to every voter who still believes this ballot belongs to him, and watch who fights transparency the hardest. They're identifying themselves for you in real time. And if you want the news in real time, thousands and thousands of patriots are already getting it. They've already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963. I want to make sure you're getting the news when the YouTube notifications never arrive. I'll send the news right to your phone in a simple text message once a night. Comment below. Okay, we are in a race against the clock tonight, folks, because we have the president's speech coming up very soon, and we want to make sure we can get those remarks broadcast to you live as well. So we're going to moving right into these remarks with respect to Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, and Jeffrey Epstein, JD Vance, and Joe Rogan. Wild remarks have been made, and we're going to bring them all to you right now. I found nothing in there that was beyond what I could picture myself doing. That's what Warren Buffett said about Bill Gates and Epstein. So stop right there. Buffett just took the Billionaire Club's dirtiest open secret and polished it on CNBC. And JD Vance admitted the Epstein rollout got botched. And wait until you hear what Vance said about his intelligence ties. We're talking about 2017 emails that tried to get Joe Rogan to meet Jeffrey Epstein. Decade-old conviction and all. Let that sink in. The elite network around this predator never shut down. It kept recruiting, smiling, circulating names like Bill Gates, Steve Bannon, and Noam Chomsky around the man everyone should have shunned. Then Warren Buffett shrugs and calls Gates' Epstein's orbit distasteful before saying he could picture himself doing it. No, you and I do not normalize serial proximity to a trafficker. And when JD Vance says Epstein had ties to the highest levels of American and Israeli intelligence, you are staring at a protection racket and not a gossip item. And when billionaires and gatekeepers bury people in redactions and excuses, you should assume the same scam hits your wallet too. If you or your family uses Medicare, call Chapter at the number on the screen, 910-728-4109. They cut through the Medicare confusion industrial complex, and Chapter is simple by design, one call, one advisor, under 20 minutes. They look at your doctors, look at your prescriptions, your whole situation, and tell you the truth. No propaganda, just facts. Clear answers beat bureaucratic fog every single time. They work for you, not big insurance. If you're already in the right plan, they'll say it. If not, they'll help you switch. It's free. And last year, people who found new plans with Chapter saved an average of $1,100. So write that number down, 910-728-4109. Write it down now and stop letting bureaucratic noise trap you in a bad deal while connected people skate. Now, Joe Rogan said one of his own guests tried introducing him to Epstein in 2017. That's the detail I can't get past because it blows up the fairy tale that Epstein became untouchable after his conviction. He stayed plugged into the club. And now watch how the tweets expose who still wants this buried. First, we go to Warren Buffett on CNBC on excluding the Gates Foundation from its annual donations of Berkshire stock.
I read a great deal since January 1st in terms of what happened with Bill and Epstein. And I read his remarks to Congress given under oath, and I read cross-examination. And while it's distasteful, while he made mistakes, I made mistakes in hiring all kinds of people or choosing friends, and then finding out later that one way or another they weren't what I thought they were. And so I found nothing in there that was beyond what I could see. I could picture myself doing. And he ended it, and I've had situations where I made mistakes about people, or people felt I made mistakes about me, but they, life goes on, and no one bats 1,000 in the business of choosing people.
So Buffett's just waved off Gates Epstein ties as distasteful and basically called it bad judgment. Next, Yahoo Finance puts the quote front and center with the line that he saw nothing beyond what he could picture himself doing. Warren Buffett addressed his decision to exclude the Gates Foundation from his major annual charitable donations. In an interview with CNBC, the Berkshire Hathaway chairman referred to Gates' past association as distasteful, but put the situation into perspective. So that's the billionaire class in plain English. Normalize it, downplay it, move on. Now the story shifts to JD Vance admitting the Epstein release was mishandled and saying the administration owns that mistake.
If people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty. We did mishandle, especially the communications of it.
What do you think should have been done?
I think that we should have just dropped everything at the very beginning. And obviously it takes a little time to review the stuff, to find the stuff, to redact things where you have victims and so forth. But we should have just done it as quickly as possible.
But some of the stuff that was redacted, some of the names that were redacted weren't victims.
So, yeah, I've looked into this, and my understanding of this, having looked at a lot of this, but not all of it, is that it is sometimes hard to draw a distinction between victim and co-conspirator. And let me highlight this in a very sort of obvious way. Ro Khanna, who's been one of the loudest voices on the Epstein file. Well, he became very loud on the Epstein files the minute Donald Trump became president, didn't seem to care about it during the Biden administration. He actually brought one of the Epstein victims, I think, to the State of the Union last year, or maybe it was the year before last. Well, that victim, and I'm not saying she wasn't a victim. I don't know anything about her particular case. She was also listed as a co-conspirator in some of these documents, right? So there's an idea that some of the people who were engaged in the sex trafficking were also, facilitating it as well.
So they were incentivized to get more girls.
Yeah, but yes, that's right. But the idea is that it's hard to sort of, it's sometimes a little bit of a gray area between, some of the people who were alleged victims were also alleged co-conspirators. And so what DOJ tried to do was kind of make that judgment as best they could and release as much as possible.
So that's JD Vance, but we have more in this long-ranging interview with Joe Rogan. Up next, he goes even further with Joe Rogan saying the Trump team absolutely screwed up the communications.
Understand, though, why people would come to that conclusion, especially because of the Epstein files?
What do you mean?
Well, the Epstein files were supposed to be released, and there was a tremendous amount of resistance to those files being released, and that concerned a lot of people. Because if you're talking about very wealthy, powerful people that were engaged in crimes,
I see. So you're basically saying the fear is that whatever's in the Epstein files was used to blackmail the administration into doing the Iran thing.
Or at the very least, the people that were involved in the Epstein files that didn't want them coming out had undue influence.
Well, again, say this with all candor, we absolutely screwed up the comms of the Epstein files. We just did. But do I think the reason we screwed up the comms is because we were trying to hide something? No. I think the reason we screwed up the comms of the Epstein files is one, Pam Bondi said the client list is on my desk, right?
Well, they had binders. They were standing in front.
But those binders were largely documents that had already been released, right? So let me try to
what was
the
purpose of that performative display of the Epstein files? And she was saying there's tens of thousands of hours of film.
I don't know what the purpose of it was, but I know that the effect of it was to make people mistrust the entire effort. And what I think was happening, look, I know Pam, I like Pam, I don't think there was anything malicious going on. I think Pam was trying to respond to the political moment. I think she overstated what we had and what we didn't have. And I think that she, got roasted for it publicly by a lot of people, including me. You and I have talked about this a lot. I'm one of the OG Epstein conspiracy theorists. I've probably gone down every single rabbit hole we could go down, most of them today.
So after the admission, Vance tries to draw a line. Bad comms, not a cover-up. Fox picks up the point next, focusing on his defense, Pam Bondi, and why he says the mess happened. Fox News says if people want to say we mishandled the Epstein release, guilty, we mishandled it, especially the communication. Vance making the stunning admission about the White House handling of the Epstein release, saying the Trump administration absolutely screwed up. So Fox highlighting Vance's claim that the problem was the rollout, not the hiding of the evidence. But in the next clip, he makes clear he still believes there's a real Epstein story that hasn't been fully exposed.
There is a story there, and, you know, I will go to my deathbed believing there's a story there, but I can't prove it. And I promise you there's not some document that at least I'm hiding that allows us to prove exactly what was going on and how.
He was also trying to get scientists, and this is one of the reasons supposedly
100%.
why he got that ranch in New Mexico.
So that's key tension. Vance says it's no secret document being hidden, but he still believes the truth is out there. Next, he gets more specific and points to Epstein's link to American and Israeli intelligence.
Clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence. He clearly had connections to the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. In fact, one of the interesting things the Epstein saga reveals about, and I try to make this point, is one of the reasons why I'm always careful, and I say there are some elements within the Israeli government who don't like our peace process, because there are a lot of elements within the Israeli government that actually do like our peace process. They recognize that this indefinite campaign is not good for them either. And the Epstein thing is interesting because as much as I know, you know, Prime Minister Netanyahu, not a particularly popular person in the United States of America right now, Epstein seemed to be connected to the elements of the Israeli deep state that were left of center. Like, I've always found that fascinating. It wasn't like he was super connected to the right of center of Israeli politics. America, he was connected across.
So Vance raises intelligence connections. The obvious question. In the next clip, Rogan adds his own brush with Epstein's orbit, and Vance explains why the paper trail may never be found.
That means
he was hanging out with Steve Bannon and Noam Chomsky.
Exactly. He had, again, in America, he had friends across the political spectrum in a way he didn't necessarily have in Israel.
I had one of my guests try to get me to meet him.
Really?
Yeah.
When?
2017.
See, that's crazy to me, because at that point he'd already gone down for at least one sex abuse thing.
That was my position. I'll show you the emails.
Okay.
They're kind of funny.
Which
I
guest?
actually read them on stage.
You want to say? Okay, fine.
People can find it.
Yeah.
I don't want to have the guy's already ruined.
Sure. But dude,
I Googled it, and I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about?
See, but this goes back to my original point.
But this is part of what he was doing, right? He wanted to get influential people.
But you go back to the original 2007 warrant on Jeffrey Epstein. All of the really crazy shit happened from the 90s to 2007. That's when he was at the peak of his power. That's when he hadn't yet gone down on a sex abuse scandal. Like, it's your point, right? Even if you have some scumbags who are willing to introduce him to Joe Rogan in 2017, there are a lot of Joe Rogans, or at least some, who are going to say, wait a second, I'm going to Google this guy and find out that he's a predator. A lot didn't.
And that was really crazy.
A lot didn't, but some did. And my point is that would limit his influence. But if you go back to like the 1990s, the early 2000s, that is the stuff. I think that is like the black hole of the Epstein saga. We don't have nearly enough from that era. And
because it was destroyed.
I think we had a prosecution that explicitly was so narrow that whatever existed would not have even been caught up.
Right. So they were specifically going after him for underage sex. And they didn't look at the full picture of the operation.
They didn't even try to.
Well, that was one of the things about the prosecutor was told that he was above their pay grade. I mean, it was one of the things that he
said he was like CIA or something.
Yeah.
Right?
He said I was told he was intelligence.
That's right. And yes, I've asked were there documents connecting Jeffrey Epstein directly to our intelligence agencies or anybody else's? And the answer is no. But if that shit existed, it wouldn't exist in 2026.
What is it?
We absolutely screwed up the comms on the Epstein files, JD Vance told Joe Rogan. Good. He said it flat, and I respect that because almost nobody in Washington ever admits the fumble on camera, but don't miss the bigger hit landing at the same time. Vance also said Epstein clearly had connections to the highest levels of American intelligence and the highest levels of Israeli intelligence. So read that again. Intelligence ties on one side, and on the other side, Warren Buffett laundering Bill Gates Epstein relationship as a distasteful mistake, and then saying, I found nothing in there that was beyond what I could picture myself doing. That line is rotten to the core. Buffett didn't just defend Gates, he exposed the ruling class code, protect the club, minimize the filth, call predation bad manners, and move on. Well, not this time. So Warren Buffett answered this. What exactly could you picture yourself doing with Jeffrey Epstein? See, that's the question. Not another CNBC cleanup lap, not another regime media word game about distasteful mistakes. I want the names, the flight logs, the contacts, the prosecutors who got blocked, and the intelligence links that JD Vance said out loud on Rogan. And yes, give Vance credit where he earned it. He admitted the Trump administration mishandled the communication on the release. And that honesty matters because it kills the cheap lie that admitting a rollout failure equals joining a cover-up. It doesn't. It clears the ground so we can press harder on the real villains. Bill Gates, Warren Buffett's billionaire shield, the intelligence-connected operators, and the media gatekeepers who spent years sanding Epstein down into an awkward social scandal. You know better. I know better. If separate rules protected this machine, then separate rules need to die in daylight. So share this one. Hammer that comment section and keep the pressure on every protected name until the reactions stop and the excuses crack. And there's no more excuses to stop getting notifications. That's right, we're bypassing YouTube, going direct to you. Thousands of patriots are already benefiting from this number I set up. They've already texted the words raw feed to 844-840-4963, and they're getting the text messages of the notifications from me right to their phone every single night. Make sure you sign up now. Okay, I've seen your comments in the chat room here about lettuce. And yeah, last night there was a brief mention of Taco Bell, and then of course the moment with Chuck Schumer. So we're actually going to dive into what is going on. Everyone's talking about Taco Bell and Chuck Schumer in the same sentence. What exactly is going on? Well, we're going to dive into that filthy story right now. Chuck Schumer blasted Trump over Iran, and then a hot mic blew up. You heard it. The Senate Democrat tried to posture as the adult in the room, and the country got a sound effect instead. Now layer that onto a Taco Bell parasite outbreak in 34 states, because this next detail makes this humiliation even worse. 1,645 confirmed cases across... Whoops. Where am I going here? 1,645 confirmed cases across 34 states, and over 600 new Michigan cases hit fast. Sit with that for a second. Families are trying to grab dinner. Taco Bell yanked ingredients from select locations, and health officials started zeroing in on lettuce while Schumer played emperor on the Senate floor. That's the part that burns me up. Chuck Schumer attacks Donald Trump, the legacy media snickers, and regular Americans deal with the fallout from another broken system the ruling class never fixes. They lecture, and we get the chaos. Now, markets and defense planners are zeroing in on a growing U.S. supply gap as near-record tungsten prices collide with national security demand. Washington is rebuilding the critical mineral supply chain because tungsten is a tungsten national security priority, used in fighter jets, tanks, missiles, drones, and ammunition, with no U.S. commercial tungsten mining since 2015. Project Vault targets a $12 billion strategic stockpile alongside $30 billion domestic production and millions towards restarting U.S. tungsten production through the Pentagon. Vault Strategic Mining is building exposure through historic tungsten assets in mining-friendly U.S. jurisdictions using proven former mines and modern exploration techniques to support reliable supply outside of China. Its Nevada Great Basin project includes a defense-related exploration contract from the Second World War, approximately 10,000 feet of drilling, and a USGS estimate of roughly 168,000 tons of tungsten oxide, with 30 to 50 billion estimated in-ground value. KNOX in Canada and KNXFF in the United States, that's how you can track them, And you can also track it by going to the Next News Intel briefing that's been prepared for you, linked below. Now, Tim Burchett, he cracked. Schumer had just been to Taco Bell, and that landed hard because now the joke cuts deeper than a cheap laugh. You've got a Democrat lifer turning into a national punchline at the exact moment investigators are tracking stomach bug cases coast to coast and waiting to see Schumer's next move when TMZ corners him. Here is Representative Tim Burchett.
I was wondering if you heard Chuck Schumer kind of pass gas. It sounded like he passed gas when he was up there.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if I think he'd just been to Taco Bell. I saw that, yeah.
It's kind of like, it's a little sort of embarrassing if that's really what happened, but also like it's so natural and kind of relatable. Is it relatable to you?
No, because everybody says, oh, you can eat that, it's organic. I said, well, dadgum horse manure is organic. I don't eat it.
Fair. You've never had that sort of like, bubbling in your stomach and needed to do that while you're giving a big speech?
I'm 61. If I pass the bathroom, it's just by accident, all right? I go in as much as I can.
So would you sort of reassure Chuck Schumer that, we all
Chuck,
do it?
It's okay, baby. You're human. If you need me, I'm here.
Oh, very good, mate. Would you eat Taco Bell today? Would you go on if someone offered you some free
Probably the safest time to eat Taco Bell would be today. It's kind of like flying on an airplane after a bad accident. The next day it's the safest day you could ever fly.
That's probably true. Hey, thank you, man.
Thank you, brother.
Wow.
Good to see ya.
Quite an exchange on the Hill there. Burchett turned it into a joke and pinned it on Taco Bell. Now watch the actual Senate floor clip that got Schumer getting roasted all over the internet.
On Iran and the NDAA. The American people need to know, of course, how and why this chaos is spreading through their streets, and we need a complete investigation that's independent. Now on Iran and the NDAA. When all the Trump administration can say about his disastrous war with Iran is that Vietnam was worse, a point Trump made yesterday, he reveals the scale of his failure. This is what Donald Trump said.
The scale of the failure is in your pants, sir. You saw the moment yourself on the Senate floor. Next, Schumer gets hit with the question directly by TMZ and then goes completely silent but deadly.
Senator.
Invalidate the election certificates of Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock.
Senator Jacob with TMZ, did you fart yesterday on the Senate floor?
Thanks, everybody. Let's get back up on the sideline.
I gotta see that again.
Senator.
Invalidate the election certificates of Senator Ossoff and Senator Warnock.
Senator Jacob with TMZ, did you fart yesterday on the Senate floor?
Did you fart on the Senate floor? He's getting asked directly. So the silence said plenty, and Schumer clearly wanted no part of it. But the Taco Bell line stops being a punchline when the real outbreak hits and ingredients start getting pulled. This is World News Tonight covering it.
Intestinal illness sweeping much of the country, thousands coming down with it. Well, tonight, the popular fast food chain voluntarily removing some items as a precaution. Here's Stephanie Ramos.
Tonight, Taco Bell saying they have voluntarily removed some ingredients at select locations as the foodborne parasite cyclosporiasis rapidly spreads across the U.S. The company stating public health officials have not confirmed a link to Taco Bell or any specific ingredient, supplier, restaurant, or retailer, adding they will closely monitor the situation. State health officials say there have been more than 600 new cases of cyclosporiasis in Michigan alone since yesterday. Health officials now pointing to lettuce as a possible source of the outbreak in that state.
We're continuing our traceback investigation on multiple produce items, including the lettuce.
The CDC confirming cases in 34 states. Today, warning that cases in Michigan, West Virginia, Kentucky, and Ohio seem to have a similar source. The parasite spread through contaminated food or water can cause severe digestive issues, including diarrhea. Symptoms usually begin about 1 week after becoming infected.
It was really bad. There were moments where I was literally just camped out in the bathroom and I don't care, I'm just going to lay on this floor.
David, the CDC is telling doctors to stay alert. Health officials say thoroughly wash.
Stay alert. So it started as Capitol Hill comedy runs straight into public health scare. The New York Post picks up the investigation into the outbreak to the reports of explosive diarrhea. New York Post, Taco Bell investigated over explosive diarrhea parasite outbreak. So the story gets even more direct. Taco Bell isn't just removing ingredients, it's under active scrutiny. Next, local TV breaks down how many states are dealing with the parasite outbreak.
Now, Taco Bell has temporarily removed some ingredients at select restaurants as a precautionary measure amid an outbreak of cyclopsoriasis. The fast food chain stresses that there is no confirmed link between the outbreak and any of its locations or suppliers. Right now, health officials in Michigan are investigating whether Taco Bell restaurants played a role in the state's outbreak. The parasite has sickened more than 4,000 people in that state alone. At least 33 other states have confirmed cases, including Maryland and Virginia.
Oh, my goodness. So the Post report raised the alarm. 7 News puts the numbers next. Another national report shows how many Americans have gotten sick and why investigators are now zeroing in on the source.
A lot of people have probably heard about this. Thousands of people have gotten sick since May. A source is yet to be determined, but Taco Bell is taking voluntary, precautionary action amid the multi-state investigation.
This morning, fast food giant Taco Bell says it's voluntarily removing some ingredients from select restaurants as a precautionary measure amid the growing outbreak of an intestinal parasitic infection in the U.S. Taco Bell telling ABC News in a statement, the health and safety of our guests is our top priority. Public health officials have not confirmed a link to Taco Bell or any specific ingredient, supplier, restaurant, or retailer. Adding, we will continue to closely monitor the situation.
Washington Post, rare stomach bug outbreak hits 34 states. Taco Bell under investigation. Fox covering it. And the question is, did you have volcano diarrhea after Taco Bell? The feds are investigating. Federal and state health officials are investigating whether lettuce served at Taco Bell played a role in massive multi-state cyclosporus outbreak. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention and state officials are tracking thousands and thousands of cases. Oh. Senator, did you fart yesterday on the Senate floor? So TMZ asked Chuck Schumer flat out, and Schumer went dead silent. The silence is the whole rotten picture, isn't it? He had plenty to say when he was attacking Trump over Iran, plenty of swagger, plenty of Senate theater outrage, but when a reporter put one direct question on him after the hot mic clip tore across the country, Schumer froze and hid behind the same protected political class arrogance that always kicks in when one of their own gets caught. Then stack the timing on top. Taco Bell cooperating with investigators, pulling ingredients from select restaurants. Officials track cyclopsoriasis in 34 states, and Michigan alone racks up thousands under investigation. You watch the pile up and tell me, this party looks serious, right? Chuck Schumer didn't just embarrass himself, he handed America a perfect snapshot of Democrat decay, loud, smug, and then mute when accountability walks up. So Chuck Schumer needs to answer the question, and Taco Bell needs answers too. Not spin, not media fluff, answers. Because you and I just watched the same grotesque split screen. A Senate Democrat humiliates himself on camera while federal and state officials chase a parasite outbreak tied to contaminated produce fears. That's not some random bad day. That's what happens when a protected ruling class runs on arrogance and never pays a price. Schumer thought he could hammer Trump, posture over Iran, and glide right past the hot mic moment. Then TMZ put a camera in front of him, and he clammed up pretty quick. Of course he did. These people demand investigations into everybody else, but when the spotlight swings onto Chuck Schumer, suddenly silence. Meanwhile, thousands of Americans are dealing with sickness, ingredient pullbacks, and another reminder that basic competence collapses wherever these elites camp out. So laugh at Schumer, he earned every bit of it, and then keep your eyes on the names, the footage, and the institutions covering for him, because that protection racket only survives if we stop looking. And don't stop looking for notifications from me, because I'll send them to you directly from your phone. That's right, we know YouTube's not sending them to you, so we set up this number, and thousands of patriots are already getting those notifications. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963 and be on the inside track when YouTube leaves you in the dark. Okay, moving right along. Now we're going to go into the latest from Tehran. And the presidential address will begin in about maybe 90 minutes is my guess. Yeah, 90 minutes. Okay, we'll be tracking that. Tehran put Trump in a coffin on a billboard today, and hours later, CENTCOM kicked off a sixth straight night of strikes. That image tells the whole story, doesn't it? The mullahs in Tehran, they can paint propaganda, but they cannot stop what's coming. And wait until you hear what Trump said about power plants and bridges. More than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen are enforcing Trump's blockade. 2 carriers, more than 20 warships, and the strait stays open for lawful shipping while Tehran gets choked off. That matters to every one of us because the Iranian regime tried to terrorize commercial vessels and hold global trade hostage. Trump snapped back with force, not excuses. And while the media panic machine pushed oil doom fantasies, Trump just said Iran will be defeated very soon. Strength stabilized the market. Tehran's threats cratered. And Karoline Leavitt just laid it out. Iran's defenses got wiped out, and that should make every American ask a harder question. If banks and markets run on code, what happens when code turns on you? Everybody cheers AI in the cloud until your wealth gets locked behind a screen. One hack, one keystroke, gone. Noble Gold Investments gives you something real, physical gold and silver, a coin you can hold, a bar you can stack. Something that doesn't live on a server, can't be frozen by a keystroke, and can't be erased by code. You can even open a tax-advantaged retirement account or get physical gold shipped right to your door. Go to nextnewsgold.com. Just mention my name for a free 10-ounce U.S. independent silver bar when you open a new qualified account. America needs strength, not digital dependency. So the 388th Mechanized Infantry Brigade, southeast of Tehran, got hammered before tonight's wave. That's the part I want you to sit with. We're not watching token strikes. Trump pushed deeper. That hit armor, hit barracks, and tore into the regime near its own capital. Now let's look at the receipts and who are melting down right now. U.S. Central Command posting that at 2 p.m. Eastern, U.S. forces began conducting a new wave of strikes against Iran for the 6th consecutive night to further degrade Iranian military capabilities. So the CENTCOM strikes are still rolling and the pressure is working. Now Karoline Leavitt says Iran is begging for a deal even as Trump keeps the daily hits coming.
Forward into a diplomatic phase, if you will, but unfortunately Iran has since violated that. They have expressed they still want to make a deal to the president. We're talking to them, but again, the president is not going to allow them to fire on ships in the Strait without paying a consequence for that. And I think just one more point, I think throughout this entire endeavor, the president has proved not just to Iran, but to the entire world that we can hit Iran anytime, anywhere, any place, and their ability to defend themselves has been essentially wiped out because of this president and Operation Epic Fury in the first place.
So Leavitt making the point plain, Iran wants talks because Trump smashed its defenses. Next, she explains why the strikes continued after Tehran crossed the line in the Strait of Hormuz.
Well, I've spoken with the president about this as recently as an hour ago. Iran very much continues to talk to the United States of America and express that they want to make a deal with us because they are suffering devastating blows on behalf of our United States military. The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these active acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences for that. And that's what we are witnessing right now.
So this isn't random firepower. It's a direct response to Iran attacking. Now the White House lays out the blockade Trump ordered and how the Navy is enforcing it. Here's more from the press secretary.
First, let me address what's happening in the Strait right now. We know that there is a blockade of ships directed by the president for ships entering and departing Iranian ports only. This has been fully implemented and is in full force. This blockade was reimposed due to Iran's inability to honor their agreement with the United States of America. More than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more than 20 warships and dozens of aircraft, are executing the blockade mission as we speak. And during the first 24 hours of the blockade, U.S. CENTCOM has redirected 2 compliant commercial vessels and disabled 1 non-compliant vessel. So, look, the Strait is open for ships that are not traveling to and from Iranian ports specifically, and the U.S. Navy is there to ensure that can take place.
So the blockade now fully enforced with U.S. warships separating compliant traffic from Iranian-linked shipping. Next, she shuts down the media game about division inside the Trump administration.
To your first question about the comments between the president and the vice president, respectfully, I do think you're taking comments from different times throughout this conflict and kind of asking me if these are contradictory of each other. I can tell you the president, vice president are on the exact same page about where we are right now in this conflict. And the fact that you do see elements of what's remaining in the Iranian regime that are more willing to make a deal, and then other elements who are not so maybe willing to make a deal, shows that Operation Epic Fury was incredibly effective because we neutered their ability to communicate with one another, and they are a fragmented system. They are not the once very strong, powerful terrorist state that they were before this operation, which was one of the ultimate goals. So we'll continue to work through the process, and as I said, the president will hold them accountable when they turn their back on the words that they state to the United States, but he is always open to diplomacy at the very same time.
So the press keeps fishing for a split. The White House says Trump and Vance are locked in. Then the regime answers with pure propaganda. A billboard in Tehran showing Trump in a coffin. Here you can see the image of President Trump in a coffin above the streets of Tehran. This published by Al Jazeera. So the coffin stunt tells you everything about what this regime really is, no matter how often the media tries to sanitize it. Next, a wider report shows the propaganda push as U.S. strikes hit deeper and the blockade tightens.
Sites Wednesday. Wow, 5 straight days. Mike Tobin joins us live from Tel Aviv with the latest. Hey, Mike.
Morning, Brian. Morning, gang. A lot of developments out of Iran. Let me start out with the U.S. on the offensive, firing deeper into Iran than it has in the past. Some of this information now is coming from Iranian state media, not confirmed by the U.S., but air defense is triggered very close to Tehran, showing U.S. forces striking for the north than they have in this round of fighting. Also, barracks for Iran's 388th Mechanized Infantry Brigade were hit. The town of Ranshar to the southeast, that brigade operates tanks and armored vehicles. Also, as part of the blockade, the U.S. has now fired on a commercial ship. It's a tanker flagged out of Curacao named Belma. U.S. Central Command says the tanker was headed toward Karg Island, Iran's primary oil export hub. The ship ignored multiple warnings. U.S. aircraft fired Hellfire missiles into the smokestack and disabled it. This after 2 commercial tankers were turned around the previous day. The propaganda ramps up on the streets of Tehran. One example of the propaganda, there's a mural of the late Senator Lindsey Graham with devil horns painted on his head. And there's another giant mural of President Trump in a coffin. President Trump was asked yesterday what he thought about these threats toward him. He says he doesn't spend much time thinking about them. Still, Iran has extended an olive branch. An American with dual citizenship in Iran, jailed while visiting family in 2024 and charged with espionage, has now been released. A lawyer for Dina Karari posted, "This would not have happened but for the extraordinary and relentless efforts of President Trump. Dina is now safe and traveling back to the United States." The president posted that the U.S. appreciates the goodwill gesture from Iran. Guys.
And now, Karoline Leavitt says, wait, did we already get that one? I don't know why this thing keeps resetting. Next, Iran's military mouthpieces declared the Strait of Hormuz a red line and threaten the whole region.
the criminal United States continues its lawlessness and its efforts to destabilize the region. First, we once again stress that under no circumstances and in no way will we allow the United States, as a foreign and extra-regional country, to interfere in the Strait of Hormuz. This is Iran's inviolable red line. If the recent threats by the empty-headed President of the United States to target the infrastructure of the Islamic Republic of Iran are carried out by that country's invading military, then everything that has so far remained intact due to Iran's restraint, namely all infrastructure across the region, will be smashed by the iron blows of the powerful armed forces of the Islamic Republic of Iran, leaving no trace behind, as though it had never existed.
So Iran's barking about red lines after getting hammered for days. The next clip shows Trump's answer, bridges, power plants, and a warning it gets really bad if they won't negotiate.
Do you anticipate that the strikes we're seeing this week against Iran will expand? Are you considering hitting energy targets or other locations inside of Iran?
I'll save the energy targets for last, but ultimately we'll hit energy targets, yeah. But we're going to hit them very hard tonight. We're going to hit them very hard tomorrow night. We're going to hit them very hard the night after. And then next week it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
Do you believe the Iranians are serious about making a deal?
I think they have no choice.
Why haven't they yet?
I think if I didn't do the way I'm doing, they would never make a deal. They would have never made a deal with Obama. That deal was the worst deal. What they did sign was a worthless piece of paper. What they signed with Obama was a worthless piece of paper that was a road to a nuclear weapon. And what I have is a wall. There will be no nuclear weapon. I'll never sign. And when you listed the three things, by far the most important is they will not have a nuclear weapon.
So Trump raising the stakes from military targets to infrastructure, keeping the regime running next. He makes the bigger point in plain English, Iran will be defeated soon.
All of these things have added up to a level that we're booming. The country is booming, and we'll have Iran defeated soon. They'll be defeated very soon. And then I guess it'll be even better. But, you know, even during this, it's been amazing. I mean, to think, so I call it a military operation, but call it whatever you want. It's incredible. It's like it hasn't made a dent. A lot of people thought oil would go up to $350 a barrel, and today it's at $79. A couple of days ago, it was at $68. It went up a little bit because I had to take tough action because they did not obey what they're supposed to obey. I mean, they just didn't do it. So we took a little action, but it'll all, when that settles down, I think you're going to have $55 oil, which is all great for what you're doing, maybe less than that. But this year alone.
After promising Iran will be defeated soon, Trump turns to the so-called allies who always want America to carry the load. His message to NATO is simple: we don't need you, and we never did. Moments ago, President Trump on Truth Social, the United States has been informed by most of our NATO allies that they don't want to get involved with our military operations against the terrorist regime of Iran in the Middle East. This despite the fact that almost every country strongly agreed with what we are doing and that Iran cannot in any way, shape, or form be allowed to have a nuclear weapon.
Just in, President Trump on Truth Social saying we no longer need or desire the NATO countries' assistance. We never did. Likewise, Japan, Australia, or South Korea. In fact, speaking as President of the United States of America, by far the most powerful country anywhere in the world, we do not need the help of anyone. News Nation's Joe.
Wow. Everyone turning their backs. Unbelievable. Next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. That's what Trump said, so stop right there. Tehran put up a coffin billboard with Trump lying inside it. In the exact same time, Karoline Leavitt said Iran still wants a deal because its ability to defend itself has been wiped out. You cannot script the humiliation this cleanly. The regime screams about a inviolable red line in the Strait of Hormuz, but Trump's blockade only targets ships entering and departing Iranian ports. Everyone else passes. That means Trump isolated the terrorist regime without choking lawful commerce, precision, power, and total control. And when the mullahs violated their agreement and fired on commercial vessels, Trump did not beg Europe, did not hide behind NATO, did not recycle Obama's paper garbage. He hit back for 6 consecutive nights. Tehran's coffin stunt was not strength. It was panic, painted on a billboard. So they can all put the coffin billboard up and send the negotiators, but this road only gets worse for Tehran. Trump already showed the whole world he can hit Iran anytime, anywhere, any place. And the regime's defenses are shot to pieces. You heard Leavitt. They're still trying to make a deal while U.S. forces keep pounding them. That's what dominance looks like. And I want you to notice something else here. NATO's freeloaders backed away, and Trump basically told them, fine, stay out of the way. America does not need your permission. That's how a superpower acts. No apology tour, no rescue package for terrorists, no face-saving off-ramp for the same regime that threatened shipping and tried to bluff the world with billboard theater in Tehran. So, we've gone through the posts, we've gone through the clips. Remember that image in your head. Remember the men who put it up secretly. They're begging him for terms. That is not resistance. That is collapse in progress. And we noticed that the YouTube notifications have collapsed as well, and so has our visibility in your newsfeed on YouTube. And that's why we set up this telephone number, so you can stay connected with me. I'll send you a text message, one a night, so you get the news when it matters most. Text raw feed to 844-840-4963, like thousands and thousands of patriots already have. Okay, where are we going from here, Brian? Let's see. Democrats, Socialists of America. Why do they even put the word America in their title if they want to destroy it? Right? Okay. Let's see where we're going from here. Let's see. Okay. Okay, I'm ready, Brian. Corn Pop was a bad dude. Going to the next topic, Brian. My phone didn't change. There we go. Okay, restart the clock, please. It's a requirement now. That's a DSA leader saying about candidate loyalty tests. And then they went further. We might not have a president. Stop right there. They didn't pitch reform, they pitched demolition. Abolish the Senate, torch the court, crush capitalism, and wait until you hear the part about bills disappearing because profit disappears. Communism led to the murder of tens of millions. That's what Mike Johnson warned. And that's what hit me so hard because the DSA didn't hide behind mushy activist slogans here. They actually published the blueprint. Abolish ICE, end deportations, abolish the Senate, abolish the Supreme Court. Now you hear that list and you know exactly what they're smashing. Borders, checks, law, self-government. While these radicals rip up the republic, Bill Gates pushes digital ID tied to banking, healthcare, voting, and education. You see the combo? One faction wrecks the old order, the other locks us into the control grid that follows. You tracking with me here? And breaking now, tightening pressure on supply chains and near-record tungsten prices are pushing Washington to treat the critical mineral supply chain as a defense issue. Tungsten is a tungsten national security priority used in fighter jets, tanks, missiles, drones, and ammunition. Yet the United States has seen no U.S. commercial tungsten mining since 2015. Project Vault backs a $12 billion strategic stockpile alongside $30 billion domestic production and millions towards restarting U.S. tungsten production. Vault Strategic Mining, KNOX in Canada, and KNXFF in the United States is targeting historic tungsten assets in mining-friendly U.S. jurisdictions, including Nevada's Great Basin, a historically productive tungsten region with a Second World War defense-related exploration contract, approximately 10,000 feet drilled in a USGS estimate of roughly 168,000 tons of tungsten oxide. Reliable supply outside of China matters to the Pentagon. Make sure you check out the next news intel briefing that is linked below. So Bill Gates praised digital systems for health and voting and education access. Pair that with the Democrat Socialists of America saying candidates must back a platform that could leave us with no president, and you can feel the trap snapping shut. First they gut the Constitution, then the technocrats wire the cage. So let's get into the receipts. Canary Mission posting, the DSA leaders make it official. It's a requirement now for endorsed candidates to support their radical program and dismantle the U.S. government.
Actually something that we committed to at convention, having our endorsed candidates supporting the program. It's a requirement now. And so that'll be incorporated into our endorsement process.
It sounds so radical, like abolish the Senate, abolish the Supreme Court, like et cetera, but it's not. Like those are the things that need to happen.
So whenever people are like, oh my God, they want to get rid of the president, I was like, well, I don't know what we would call it in the future. We could call it the head honcho of whatever, like it's like we might not have a president.
Wow. So DSA insiders say it outright, backing the anti-Constitution program is now mandatory. Next, the new platform gets uglier, from killing for-profit businesses to ending deportations and putting Congress over the courts. Wall Street apes. The Democrat Socialists unveiled their new platform ahead of the midterms. It's even crazier than a few weeks ago. Get rid of for-profit companies. No one will have many bills because there won't be for-profit companies. You can take days off of work because you won't have many bills because they want to end for-profit companies. Abolish ICE, end ICE deportations, end all deportations, abolish the Senate, Supreme Court, more wealth taxes on billionaires, expand the Congress they'll control, a new justice system they'll control. And they say Bernie Sanders is the only popular senator because he's a socialist. These people are communists. They want to destroy and bring down America.
All right, welcome back. The Democratic Socialists just unveiled a sweeping new policy agenda. It calls for a dramatic overhaul of all three branches of the government. They say, on the plus side, you'll probably never have to pay a bill again. Take a listen.
You're able to take a day off and not have to worry. And you don't have to have a job just to pay the bills because you don't have a lot of bills, right? Bills are no longer a thing because there's not for-profit businesses that are constantly trying to exploit you and trying to, put you into debt.
We wanted to lift up that demand very clearly and to state, abolish ICE, end ICE detention, end deportations, and punish the brutality of these federal agents.
Correspondent Madeline Rivera has all the details for us here in the D.C. newsroom. Hey, Maddie.
Good afternoon, Jillian. Besides those things, the DSA also calls for defunding the Department of War, reparations, and wealth taxes. They argue capitalism hinders freedom and that our current political system is not true democracy.
Why do we have a Senate? Like a lot of people are going to see that and they'll be like, wait a second, why do I have a Senate? Like, what's so great about the Senate? I mean, I'm not sure about this, but I'm pretty sure the only popular senator is Bernie Sanders, and it's because he ran for president as a Democratic Socialist.
The DSA is pushing for an expansion of the House, which they argue is a more accurate representation of the population. And they want the Supreme Court to be replaced by a judiciary chosen by and subordinate to Congress. The new platform comes as the DSA hits 120,000 members, which they say is now the largest socialist organization in the country. The agenda will essentially serve as a rallying call as they try to build on the wins of left-wing candidates in recent primaries. Democrats are torn about how to tackle the rise of socialism within their party, but Senator Bernie Sanders says it's been a long time coming.
We are seeing a real movement of the American people who increasingly understand that we are living in a moment where never in our history have so few people, multi-billionaires, had so much economic and political power. And all across this country, we're seeing a profound disgust People are standing up and saying that establishment politics and establishment policies are not working. We need change.
House Speaker Mike Johnson and other Republicans are sounding the alarm, framing communism as a real threat ahead of the midterms.
Let's just see what the average.
So it's not fringe talk. It's a full agenda, and Bernie Sanders is cheering parts of it on. Next, lifelong Democrat and former Clinton staffer says these anti-American demands should be condemned by Democrat leaders. Former Clinton staffer Jamie Metzel.
So-called workers deserve more. The DSA's new platform focuses on shifting structural, political, and economic power away from corporations and into the hands of the working class. The platform outlining a fundamental rewrite of the U.S. framework to ensure every resident, regardless of status, has civil and political rights. On Tuesday, the Democratic Socialists of America dropping their new platform, which includes extending full voting rights to people with criminal convictions and non-citizens, replacing the Electoral College with a national popular vote for president, plus replacing the two-party system with a multi-party democracy, while also expanding the House and abolishing the Senate.
We just don't see the point of the Senate. Historically, it was meant to serve very wealthy people who owned a lot of land. And that's still a system that we have today, and it's something we would change.
The new platform comes as the socialist surge continues to sweep the nation. Multiple DSA candidates knocking off long-term establishment Democrats in recent state primaries. That includes Milat Quiros in Colorado, plus Claire Valdez and Daria-Liza Avila Chevalier in New York. Lifelong Democrat and former staffer in the Clinton administration, Jamie Metzel telling the National News Desk, Democratic Party leaders need to condemn the DSA and its associated candidates.
These are just absolutely unacceptable, disgraceful, anti-American views. We should all condemn them, especially Democratic leaders.
Metzel launching a petition to oppose Chevalier, who beat five-term incumbent Adriano Espaillat in New York's 13th congressional district primary, pointing to her public record, including two now deleted tweets from 2019, one of which reads in part, quote, "I forgot to get napkins, so I just wiped my hand on the American flag behind me."
And what I'd like to do is to have this petition put pressure on Democratic leaders to condemn people like Chevalier, like the woman in Colorado who essentially said that America had 9/11 coming.
When even a Clinton world Democrat calls this disgraceful, you know the rot is deep. Next, Andrea Schaefer lays out how the DSA is using purity tests and primary warfare to take over the Democrat Party from the inside. Well, that's a long post. Radical DSA transformation of a republic must be defeated. The American Republic stands at a crossroads. One of the most significant and underappreciated developments in recent American politics has been the steady rise of the DSA and its growing influence in the Democrat Party. They've moved from the fringes of the progressive left to become a powerful voice that's actively reshaping the Democrat Party from within. It's Marxist in its core, seeks a drastic reduction in military power of the United States, and on and on and on this post goes. But that's the play, pressure, purge, replace, repeat. Now compare that Marxist push with Trump, keeping it simple and direct on TikTok with his post that he made.
Declaration of Independence, which is a great honor. I keep hearing so much about TikTok and all of the influence they have, and that how it's unfair and how it's this and that. But here's the only problem. I'm number one on TikTok. Can you believe it? I'm number one. Look at those numbers. Billions and billions of people are looking at Trump. And I keep hearing about the influence other people have. I don't know. How come I'm number one if they have so much influence? There's your number. So I think we have influence too. And I'm saying stop communism.
I love how he just dropped that in at the end. He publishes it on True Social. No doubt it went on TikTok. Drops that little zinger at the end. Speaker Mike Johnson warns the fight is no longer overseas, it's here at home, and the DSA platform proves it.
Happens, it's inevitable. Communism and this philosophy has led to the murder of tens of millions of innocent people in the 20th century alone. It is a nightmare. It is a trail to certain death, okay? And that's why we're speaking in such stark terms, because we need America to wake up. We're not even, look, 35 years ago, Republicans and Democrats in Congress, when I was coming up in, the Reagan years, They were fighting communism on a distant shore. Now it's here. But in Congress, they all agreed on that. They obviously knew that we had to fight communism. And so what they were doing here for domestic policy, that was foreign policy. Domestic policy, they were arguing over, marginal tax rates and the shades of regulation and how large the government should be. There wasn't a huge difference, a chasm between the two parties. Those days are gone. Right now, domestically, we are arguing, we are debating, we are fighting. The election will be over whether we're going to maintain our freedom in a constitutional republic, the greatest experiment in self-governance in the history of the world, the longest surviving constitution on the planet, the nation that everybody wants to emulate, and everybody wants to come here. We have to seal our borders so they won't flood over them. We're the only nation in the world that has that distinction. We're the last great superpower. We are the greatest nation in the history of the world. We are fighting right now in Congress over whether we're going to maintain our status as a constitutional republic, or we're going to trade that in, dismantle the foundations, and go down this dark road of death to communism. That is the question on the ballot this fall. Now, DSA published their platform. I hope you're all covering. I hope you're writing in depth about their platform. I read it out at an event a few weeks ago, and they've made an ad mocking me reading their platform.
So he says the battle line is freedom versus communism. He's pointing straight at the DSA. Next, House Republicans pick up the same warning with a patriotic answer to stars and stripes over the hammer and sickle.
We lose freedom here. There's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth.
The stars and stripes cast the hammer and sickle into oblivion before, and we will do it again.
We will do it again. That's from the House GOP publishing that. And here's another one. A DSA member, Emma Vigeland, says she doesn't care if the candidates she supports are secret Nazis as long as they vote with the DSA.
I've said this before. I don't really care if, say, like Bernie Sanders or AOC go home and they're a secret Nazi, but they go out and they vote for the right things. Like, we're talking about
you don't
politicians
care?
As I mean,
I don't know about that. I'm like, that's a. I think these are the lines that people are talking about. Some people care about that exact thing.
Wow. Next, the same mindset shows up on the ground in New York, where Mandami, an ally, calls eviction violence at an anti-landlord press event.
Our city is turning the corner on tenant power. When we organize, we win results. The Mamdani administration is emboldening us so that we no longer tolerate the violence of evictions as a matter of business as usual. My landlord owns dozens of buildings, but he is not a steward of the public trust. In fact, it is the opposite.
Masked up and all. Next, Democrat Josh Gottheimer draws a line saying the socialists aren't interested in solving problems.
I also I'm a democratic capitalist, and I think there's a new group of democratic socialists who are not common sense Democrats, who are not interested in getting things done. They're interested in throwing bombs, not actually solving problems.
Senator Eric Schmidt goes after another piece of the swamp, blasting Biden's former pardon attorney as a grifter with no credibility.
I was called here to talk about Mr. Blanche's nomination.
Yeah, I know that's what you thought you came here to talk about. But the reality is your credibility is gone. You can't come here and do the political bidding of the Biden administration. And then when you're called out on that and being fired, and thank God you're being fired. You know what I really think? I think you thought you came here and you're selling merch, by the way. Do we have the hoodies that are up for sale? You sell merch. Let's show the hoodies. I think you came here thinking that you were going to be ordained the high priestess of the resistance. That's what I think. That's why you're denying simple facts that you authored the memo commuting the sentences. Everyone knows that. And we have documents now from the White House that they use that memo as a PR stunt. And so the idea, you have no credibility to talk about Todd Blanche. You have none. You've come here.
I want to get to President's remarks here, and I also have this clip from Bill Gates. Jeez. Okay, here, let's get to this clip from President Trump. It's a throwback clip.
Federal law prohibits the entry of communists and totalitarians into the United States. But my question is, what do we do with the ones that are already here that grew up in it? I think we have to pass a new law for them.
Yeah. Now we'll get to Bill Gates' remarks.
Well, we believe having the ability to save and transact is something that should be universal, and a lot of forms have adopted that goal. We won't be able to do that with traditional systems. That is, the cost of bank branches and paperwork is just too high. But fortunately, starting with countries like Kenya, and more recently with a robust system in places like India, we see that you can have digital financial inclusion. India is a great example. They did a lot of their own technology, which won't be possible for other countries. And so the role of the Gates Foundation as an advocate for those who don't have access today is to make sure there's technology and standards, including open source work that we're providing through the financial switch, which is called Mojaloop, and through the digital identity system, which is extremely valuable, not just for financial activities, but for health and voting and education, and that's called MOSIP.
Since there isn't going to be a one-size-fits-all solution, what is the role that you see the private sector playing in being able to collaborate with different governments to ensure that we move forward?
Well, once you have the digital money system, then there's all sorts of services and applications that can be built on top of that, whether it's helping with health or education or agriculture, giving people visibility into their financial status, giving them advice, should they take a loan, should they buy insurance, what makes sense. The phone becomes a connection for low cost interaction with those customers that doesn't require human activity that would be beyond the means of the people we're trying to get to.
So we might not have a president. That's what the DSA figure said, smiling through it. That lines the whole game. And I want you to sit with it for a second. They're not arguing over tax rates. They're not tweaking a program. They're telling you out loud that the American system itself has to go. The same operation made it a requirement now that endorsed candidates support this agenda, and that is the purity test for regime change. They stack the charges. Abolish ICE, deportations, the Senate, the Supreme Court, get rid of for-profit companies. Who says that in the United States of America unless they want to bury the republic? And Trump nailed it cold. Federal law prohibits the entry of communists and totalitarians. So what do we do with the ones that are already here? Exactly. He named the disease while Democrats kept dressing it up as progress. So Democrat leaders need to answer one question tonight. Do you reject this platform? Not with a cute press release, not with a dodge. I mean, name it and torch it. Because the DSA just stamped requirement now onto a program that strips borders, shreds checks and balances, and sneers at the presidency itself. Even Josh Gottheimer called these people socialists, not interested in getting things done. And former Clinton World Voices called this absolutely unacceptable and anti-American. So don't tell us this is fringe smoke. We can see the fire. And thank God President Trump isn't tiptoeing around it. He said, stop communism. And it lands because it matches the evidence sitting right in front of us. You and I need to keep dragging this into the daylight every single time Democrats try to hide it under the word progressive. Expose every candidate, hammer every loyalty test, defeat every communist plank at the ballot box before these records get anywhere near the keys. And I want to hand you the keys to the news. YouTube took them away from you when they stopped sending you notifications. I've read your comments, and that's why I set up this telephone number for you. And thousands of patriots are already taking advantage of it. Just text the words raw feed to 844-840-4963, and I'll send you one text message a night to make sure you have the keys to the truth. Okay, counting down the clock to the presidential address tonight. I think what we'll do is we'll we're going to play, we're going to run out this next segment, and then we'll run the press briefing from this morning, which should probably get us right to about the time that the event is supposed to start. So I think, Brian, we can just keep this stream running straight through. At least that's what I'm intending to do. And we'll just run it live. I'm just going to find the right feed to pull it in from. God damn it. All right. We cannot give up the traffic stop. That's what Trump fired off on Truth Social, and just like that, he torched an ICE retreat within 24 hours. So look at this. While Democrats spent years teaching illegals how to dodge agents, Trump snapped the mission back into place. And wait till you hear who Homan says helped create the violence. Don't comply with ICE, and here's how you evade ICE. Tom Homan said it flat out. Let that sink in. Homan named the Democrat machine for poisoning the field while ICE agents face shootings and assaults. Then AOC turns around and blames ICE funding for civilian deaths. No. Watch the scam. Democrats inflame resistance, agents get put in danger, and then AOC smears the officers instead of the agitators. That garbage gets people hurt, and Trump had to step in fast because weakness here hands criminal aliens a green light. So Tom Homan is warning about folded flags for agents, and Americans ought to think just as hard about what gets inside our own homes and bodies. Parasite Purge opens with a man who ate undercooked fish and ended up with a worm moving in his eye. It's grotesque, yes, but the World Health Organization tracks parasitic infection prevalence and says 1 in 2 are affected. That can show up as brain fog, chronic fatigue, pain that won't go away, IBS-like symptoms, even severe chronic conditions. Jonathan Otto built a typical cleanse alternative, the full-spectrum parasite elimination protocol, pairing a science-backed parasite formula with red and near-infrared light therapy for healthy cellular function and natural detoxification processes, plus free bonuses like the 10-day intensive parasite detox protocol to prepare your body, support the cleansing process, and maximize your results. Go to purgemyparasitesnow.com and use code NNN45 to save 45% for a limited time. Stop surrendering ground. Vehicle stops are continuing. That's what Karoline Leavitt said today, and that line matters because it crushes the spin instantly. You can watch the cleanup in real time. Trump overruled the retreat. Mullen got back on the page, and now the White House is saying out loud that ICE keeps every tool it needs. Now let's get to the receipts. Trump reinstating ICE traffic stops just 24 hours after pausing them over 2 fatal shootings involving immigration agents.
Morning. So it was just 2 days ago that Border Czar Tom Homan shared that ICE was doing a temporary pause on vehicle stops. Homan indicated the decision was made by DHS Secretary Markwayne Mullin and the ICE director. Then the president came out with this Truth Social post saying, "We cannot give up one of ICE's most important and effective crime-fighting tools, the traffic stop. Once we do, we are playing right into the criminals' hands." He also addresses ICE officers saying, "Be judicious, fair, and smart, and go back and do your very important job." Mullen has not explicitly said the pause would be overturned, but he says this: President Trump and I are on the same page. We want our ICE officers to have all options available to keep them safe while executing our mission of deporting as many illegal alien criminals from our country as possible. The back and forth comes after 2 fatal ICE-involved shootings in less than a week. Authorities in Maine have identified a 25-year-old man whom DHS says was not the target of their operation, but he tried to flee before an agent opened fire, calling it a...
So Trump shut down the retreat fast and put ICE traffic stops back on the table. Now Tom Homan goes straight at the Democrats, saying their ICE rhetoric is getting agents hurt.
This all comes back to the Dems who are telling people don't comply with ICE. ICE is not a real law enforcement agency. Here's how you evade ICE. Now, you and I talked about AOC a year ago. She says, well, I'm advising my constituents of their constitutional rights. don't open your door, don't comply. You see signs that these protests resist. And this is the problem. You need to comply with law enforcement. So here's my concern. I think Mark Wayne Mullen might have been one of the reasons he wanted to look at temporary pause. I'm scared to death because assaults with vehicles are sky high. There's been a lot of shootings. I'm scared to death that one of these days, our ICE officers aren't going to be quick enough. The bad guys will be quicker. And I'm going to hand another folded flag to a spouse or a child. So, you know, President Trump's clear this policy is not going away. But it all goes back to the Dems who want to continually attack ICE and tell people to evade them, tell people don't comply, tell people to resist, and tell people ICE isn't a real law enforcement agency. You and I talked about this a year and a half ago, Laura. I said if the hateful rhetoric didn't stop, there will be bloodshed. And I'm saying it right now. There's still going to be more bloodshed unless they shut their mouth and let ICE enforce the laws that they enacted.
Homan says the problem starts with the Democrats telling people to resist and evade. Next, the focus turns inside the administration with reports that Mark Wayne Mullen moved to suspend traffic stops before Trump stepped in. Mark Wayne Mullen went around President Trump's back to suspend ICE traffic stops, infuriating POTUS, according to reports. They're saying it was a total betrayal by Mullen, and there must be consequences. Thank God 47 overruled Mullen. So after the back channel move, Trump overruled it and backed ICE. Meanwhile, AOC is blaming more ICE funding for the recent deaths instead of lawlessness her side keeps excusing.
Any reaction to the ICE killings in Maine and Texas?
I'm still taking a look at all of the details, but once again, this is not... I said this a couple of weeks ago, that I would not be surprised if when ICE funding started up again, that we would start to see more civilian deaths at the hands of ICE. And that's exactly what has happened. When you open the trenches with all of this money that Republicans have now funneled to ICE without any oversight or anything, you're going to see abuses of power. And that's exactly what's happening. You notice that, you know, we didn't see things like this happening with the same degree of regularity when we froze the ICE funds. Right. And now that they've been opened up again, we're seeing multiple incidents now. So,
right. Thank you, Congresswoman.
Thank you.
So AOC wants to blame enforcement, but Democrats have an even bigger problem when they try to defend who stays here. Watch Catherine Clark dodge on illegal aliens before admitting TPS holders aren't legal at all.
Whip Clark, you recently made a comment on X about MAGA extremists who are rabidly anti-immigrant, kneecapping healthcare and the economy. Can you elaborate on that? How anti-immigration, wanting to secure our borders, impacts the economy negatively?
Everybody wants secure borders, but the mass deportation, the killings by ICE, ask any person who's in construction of houses how it's going. Ask farmers how it's going with their workforce. Ask anybody in healthcare who can't find a nursing home because MAGA wants to deport Haitian TPS holders who supply 15%.
Well, it's temporary, right? It should only be temporary, but they've been here indefinitely.
Are the conditions in Haiti? We're not even allowed to travel there as Americans. So let's put the economy first.
What about Americans first, though?
Yes.
But these are illegal aliens. These are illegal aliens.
What's illegal about TPS? Nothing.
They need to go back because it's a temporary order. Thank you.
I always love the look she gives right at the end. Oh, man, that's great. But her answer says everything about the last game. Temporary protections that never end. Next, the White House lays it down clearly. Vehicle stops are continuing, and Trump and Mullen are now publicly on the same page.
Couple of things. Vehicle stops are continuing. Verbal guidance has been given to all field offices across the country by the Department of Homeland Security. The President and the Secretary of Homeland Security are on the same page that vehicle stops are a necessary tool that ICE agents need in order to continue their deportation campaign of the worst illegal alien criminals from our country. With respect to body cameras, I know there's been some questions about that in recent days. Over half of all ICE field offices now do have body cameras cameras, and the remainder of the field offices are expected within 60 days. It's been a slower rollout than we would have hoped, but that's because of the Democrats' decision to shut down DHS for several weeks. So we expect to fully execute on the promise of body cams to all field offices across the country very soon.
And now she talks about the new numbers from DHS.
Brand new numbers this week from the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection confirm that for the 14th straight month, this administration has released 0 illegal aliens into the United States. Again, let me reiterate, the 14th straight month, not a single illegal criminal alien has been entered into our country, released into our country by this administration. Illegal crossings in June remained at historic lows, and southwest border apprehensions are down 94% compared to the same period under the Biden administration. These numbers speak for themselves. Thanks to President Trump's strong leadership and unwavering commitment to law enforcement, America has the most secure border we have ever had in our nation's history. The administration continues working to reverse the previous influx of millions of illegal aliens into our country by the Biden administration, and our law enforcement professionals, God bless them, are arresting criminal illegal aliens across the country, including those convicted of the most heinous and violent crimes.
So the 14th straight month, not a single illegal criminal alien got released. That's what she said. 14 straight months. 0 releases, and border apprehensions cratered 94% from the Biden years. So when Catherine Clark whines that industries depend on Haitian TPS labor, and when AOC smears ice over those killings, you're watching the same racket from 2 angles. They flooded the system, normalized the illegality, then tried to bully America into thinking enforcement itself caused the crisis. See, that's the lie. Trump just blew it up. He saw DHS wobble on traffic stops after 2 fatal shootings, and he slammed the tool right back in ICE's hands because he knows criminals exploit hesitation. Homan warned that Democrats tell people ICE is not real law enforcement and hand out evasion tips. And there it is. They delegitimize the badge, then cry foul when chaos follows. Trump restored order. The left fed the disorder. So Mark Wayne Mullen does need to answer one question. Why did ICE traffic stops pause at all? And that's where I land after reading this mess, because Trump fixed it fast, but we should not shrug off the retreat that forced him to fix it. You heard the president's words. We cannot give up one of ICE's most important and effective crime-fighting tools, the traffic stop. Exactly. Not during a deportation campaign targeting the worst of the worst, not while Tom Homan warns that Democrats tell people don't comply with ICE and here's how you evade ICE, and not after Karoline Leavitt confirmed vehicle stops are continuing because ICE needs them to remove criminal aliens. So yes, celebrate the win. Trump saw weakness and crushed it in a day, but keep your foot on the gas. Name AOC, name Kathleen Clark, name every activist and Democrat mouthpiece that sabotages ICE, incites resistance, and then blames the badge. If they undercut enforcement, call them out. If they protect illegal alien criminals, expose them. America is enforcing the law again, and nobody gets to drag us backwards, including YouTube. That's why we set up this telephone number, 844-840-4963. All you got to do is text raw feed, and we'll take you forward with the news every single night. One text message to your phone direct from me when YouTube fails to send you notifications. Thousands of patriots have already taken advantage of it. Have you? Okay, we're going to shift gears into
anticipate that
the press briefing from earlier today as we prepare for the presidential address tonight. So I'm going to start that up here, and we'll see you in a little bit, right before the address to the nation from the President of the United States tonight.
The integrity of our elections, and we encourage every American to tune in. On Friday, the president will elect. If you see you. Good afternoon, everyone. It's great to be back with all of you. It's good to see you. Good to be in this room. I'm glad everybody showed up today. Let's get back to work. We're going to begin with a few scheduling announcements. Tonight, as you all know, at 9:00 p.m. Eastern, President Trump will deliver a major address to the nation on protecting the integrity of our elections, and we encourage every American to tune in. On Friday, the president will travel to New York City to attend a FIFA reception at Trump Tower, followed by his attendance on Sunday at the FIFA World Cup between Spain and Argentina. His attendance will cap what has been the most watched, most secure, and most successful World Cup in American history. This is a fitting conclusion to a tournament that showcased America's ability to host the world on the grandest stage. Turning now to the economy. Tuesday's CPI report confirmed what President Trump predicted. Prices are falling, and this administration's economic policies are working. Inflation dropped 0.4% last month, beating expectations and marking the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Prices fell, including for gasoline, electricity, non-prescription drugs, car insurance, medical care services, and hotels, delivering relief for American working families. We also saw real weekly earnings rise in the month of June. For private sector workers, real wages have increased by roughly $1,000 since President Trump took office, after falling nearly $3,000 during the previous administration. This is real progress made possible by the president's pro-growth economic agenda. There is still more work to do, no doubt, which is why President Trump remains laser-focused on lowering costs and raising wages for working families across the country. Just last week, Walmart and Sam's Club announced they will be lowering prices on thousands of items in their stores across the country. Shoppers can expect meaningful savings on groceries, household essentials, outdoor living products, toys, apparel, and other everyday staples. As President Trump said, Walmart answered his call and stepped up in a big way, and we commend them for that. We hope other major retailers will follow the lead of this patriotic American company. While we're on the subject of helping working families get ahead, I want to remind everyone that the Trump accounts are now officially live. To date, and this is a new stat from the Council of Economic Advisors this morning, more than 6.5 million American children have been signed up for accounts so far, including my 2 kids, who I signed up during my maternity leave. There are a few things I want to make clear about this massively beneficial program that has the potential to literally transform the financial future of this country. First, any child under the age of 18 is eligible to have a Trump account opened in his or her name. This is a free investment savings account that costs nothing to open. Second, thanks to President Trump, every child born between January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2028 will receive a $1,000 seed deposit from the United States Treasury. Third, parents, guardians, relatives, and friends can contribute up to $5,000 per year combined for each child. Employers can also contribute up to $2,500 per year on a tax-favored basis, counting toward the annual cap. The president believes there is no better investment than in America's children. Government projections show that a child whose family maxes out contributions could see the account grow to nearly $300,000 by the time the child turns 18. This is, think we can all agree, an enormously powerful head start toward the American dream. These funds can be used for college, starting a business, or purchasing a home. This is truly a transformational, nonpartisan program. So I encourage everyone listening with a child to establish a Trump account today for your child and tell everyone you know with children to do the same. The app is also incredibly inviting and easy to use for parents at home. Finally, let's turn to the border. Brand new numbers this week from the Department of Homeland Security and Customs and Border Protection confirm that for the 14th straight month, this administration has released 0 illegal aliens into the United States. Again, let me reiterate, the 14th straight month, not a single illegal criminal alien has been entered into our country, released into our country by this administration. Illegal crossings in June remained at historic lows, and Southwest border apprehensions are down 94% compared to the same period under the Biden administration. These numbers speak for themselves. Thanks to President Trump's strong leadership and unwavering commitment to law enforcement, America has the most secure border we have ever had in our nation's history. The administration continues working to reverse the previous influx of millions of illegal aliens into our country by the Biden administration, and our law enforcement professionals, God bless them, are arresting criminal illegal aliens across the country, including those convicted of the most heinous and violent crimes. This past weekend alone, ICE arrested a Mexican national and gang member convicted of second-degree murder in California. a Dominican national convicted of aggravated manslaughter in New Jersey, a Saudi national convicted of indecent liberties with a child in North Carolina, a Mexican national convicted of continuous sexual abuse of a child in California, a Nicaraguan national convicted of second-degree child molestation in Rhode Island, and a Mexican national convicted of lewd acts with a child under 14 with force in California. These are egregious crimes, and again, I think we can all agree that none of you would want these individuals living in your communities, and you have this administration to thank that they are on their way back home. The American people delivered a decisive mandate to arrest and deport these dangerous criminals, and President Trump is wholeheartedly committed to delivering on that mandate every day. He will never waver in his duty to defend our homeland and protect the American people, and he has proven without a shadow of doubt that the chaos and the lawlessness that we saw every single day at the border and across our country under the Biden administration was a choice, and it is a choice this president has chosen not to make. While this work is far from finished, the border is secure, and deportations will continue. With that, I'll take your questions today. I look forward to doing so. I know there's a lot of news. We have two people in our new media seats today, Rachel Bade and Ben Black. Rachel, why don't you kick us off? Ben will give you a question, and then we'll get to the rest of all of you. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back to the briefing room. Congrats on your baby. Two questions,
sure,
if I may. The first one, a fun one for your first day back. You now have two babies under 2 years old.
I do.
As someone who has a 4-year-old, I can only imagine how little you are sleeping right now. What is your one tip or secret to women who want to have it all, the kids and the hard charging career?
Well, thanks for the question, Rachel, and it is really good to be back with all of you. I don't think there is a secret. You just have to show up every day and keep going, and it really does take a village. Take the opportunity to shout out to my husband, who's home with our babies right now. I look forward to returning home later to be with them, but it's challenging. But for me, I view this as more than job. I view this as public service on behalf of a president who I firmly believe in everything this administration is doing and really creating a better country for my children and their future. And I'm very grateful for that. Blessed to both be working in this job, but also to have two beautiful babies at home. And as you know, Rachel, and any mom in this room knows, there's nothing better than being a mother. So thanks for the question.
Baby, they're the best. Okay, a question about tonight. There are a lot of Republicans in this town who very much support the SAVE Act and want to make sure, our elections are upheld, election integrity, top priority for them. But some of them are concerned that tonight's primetime address might focus on, elections of the past, relitigating them rather than voter concerns of today. I'm wondering, can you tell us if the president tonight is going to talk about the economy? You just talked a lot about the economy and what we're seeing there. And what does the White House say to Republicans who are worried that election issues like this could actually turn off swing voters?
Well, a few things. I would encourage everyone to tune in tonight. I've seen a lot of reporting and frankly misreporting about what the president will say. I think the American people will be relieved to hear what they are hearing from the president of the United States and his commitment to transparency and the focus on the integrity of our elections tonight. I think all Republicans and Democrats should recognize this should be a nonpartisan issue. If we don't have safe and secure elections in our country, we cannot have a country. It is a vital part of our democracy, of our constitutional republic. The president will be speaking about that tonight. And in addition, at the very same time, of course, he is working on all of these economic issues that the American people have at home. I just read to you the latest inflation numbers are looking good, the best report in 6 years. The president, Republicans and Democrats and all Americans have this president to thank for the largest tax cuts in American history, which every Democrat on Capitol Hill voted against. You have this president to thank for the Trump accounts for our children and securing the future of the American dream. So this president is doing a lot. But obviously, safe and secure elections are a true tenet of our constitutional republic, and the president will be speaking about that tonight. Thank you. And Ben, please.
So I'm from England. I've been following the World Cup all around, absolutely loving it. Unfortunately, we got knocked out last night. I'd love to
Sorry. Tough day for you today.
Yeah, it's so good though. But I want to know, so all these football fans coming to America, absolutely having a great time. I've had an amazing time. What do you want these football fans to take away from their time in America?
Sure. Well, I'm so glad you enjoyed your experience here in our country, and sorry for the loss. We look forward to the final match on Sunday, and I know the president looks forward to attending, but I think the world saw that this president and this country is able to put on the greatest show in sports in the world. And we are a kind people, we are hardworking people, and we have the best country on the planet. And I know I've loved seeing the videos from foreigners from around the world who have traveled to the United States, and I've been quite surprised about how lovely and enjoyable the United States is. I don't think we get enough credit from the international media around the world, but we encourage everyone to come and experience America for themselves. So thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
And safe travels home. You're welcome. Here, Garrett.
Karoline, welcome back.
Good to see you.
Likewise, it's been agreed that this speech tonight is about elections past, not elections upcoming. The 2020 election has had dozens of recounts, lawsuits, audits. 2024 election widely believed to be safe and secure. There's not really any question about that. A lot of people...
Because it was too big to rig.
Well, I think a lot of people look at this...
There's a massive amount of votes for this president. That's why he's in the Oval Office right now.
No one disputes that. And there were a significant amount of votes for Joe Biden, who won in 2020. And then the question is, why is the president unable to let this go?
Well, first of all, Garrett, I think part of the problem is that the media has refused to acknowledge that tens of millions of Americans across the country share the concerns of this president about the sanctity of our elections. And your premise of your question, you're jumping ahead to a conclusion in this speech before even hearing it yourself. I think that everyone should tune in tonight, including the people in this room, and you should report on the president's speech and the findings that he is going to reveal in this speech with a little bit of honesty and a little bit of integrity, because it will shock you if you have an honest eye listening to the president tonight, and everything he is saying will be backed by facts and by evidence that will be provided this evening. And again, Garrett, I think all Americans, Democrat, Republican, should agree that we are the greatest country in the history of the world. We should have the safest and most secure elections in the history of the world. And what the president will be speaking about tonight will show you that perhaps that is not the case, and we need to make some adjustments moving forward, including the Save America Act, as Rachel pointed out, is a key legislative priority for this president on Capitol Hill, and he wants to see all senators and members of Congress voting in favor of the Save America Act, because it's crucially important as we move forward. Aisha.
Hi, Karoline. Welcome back.
Thank you.
Maybe the pink is for your baby girl.
You know, I didn't think that, but I guess it is now. Thank you.
We talked a little bit about what the president might say tonight, but the other question is, who is running the teleprompter tonight after this report that the other guy is now under investigation for making money off of reading the president's speech?
Obviously, I'm aware of the report. The president is too. I spoke with him about it. He believes it's deeply unfortunate and, frankly, a disgrace. And the individual that was cited in that report is complying with the CFTC, but has been put on paid administrative leave. So there will be a teleprompter operator tonight, of course, but it will not be the one, unfortunately, in that story.
On Iran, the vice president, JD Vance, went on this podcast with Joe Rogan yesterday, talked about Israel, in which he said that there are some people within their system that we know beyond a shadow of a doubt for manipulating and trying to change American public opinion to keep the war going on indefinitely. Does the president agree with that statement?
I think the president would certainly agree that, yes, foreign countries certainly do try to persuade American public opinion. There's no doubt about that. I think it's just a basic fact. Ed.
Good to see you, Caroline. Following up on the teleprompter and then one on tonight's speech, what steps is the White House taking to ensure something like that doesn't happen again?
Well, the White House has extremely strict ethical guidelines with respect to issues like this. And as I just told you, this individual will no longer be here. He'll be on paid administrative leave. I'm sorry, without pay. The administrative leave is unpaid, to be very clear. That was a decision by the president. So I think that speaks for itself.
On the concerns about the election, will the president accept the results of November's election?
Look, Ed, you should tune into the president's speech tonight before you jump ahead to conclusions about what's actually in the speech. Again, I've seen a lot of reporting and misreporting about what the president will say. We hope CBS will take the speech, and all Americans should take it.
Okay, but I'm not presuming it. Just ask the accept the results.
I had two questions from the Trump accounts. First, following the birthright citizenship case, is there concern that babies that are born to illegal immigrants here in the United States are not excluded from these accounts? And also, since the $1,000 per child from the Treasury seeds these accounts, can you assuage concerns from those who feel this is wealth redistribution?
I would certainly not describe it as that. As you know, this was an incredible private-public partnership. We had incredibly generous Americans, Michael Dell, and many others who contributed to the fund for the Trump accounts. So that money will then be passed along to America's children, which I think is a great thing that all Americans from all political persuasions can agree upon. With respect to your question on birthright citizenship, I think the president has made his view and the White House has made our view on this case quite clear. We're going to continue to move forward to work with Congress, hopefully in the future, to remedy this problem in our country and to ensure that we cannot have this scam continuing where you have foreigners from all around the world traveling to our country to give birth to babies who are then given the greatest privilege on the face of the planet, American citizenship. That's not how our founding fathers intended this country to work or to operate, and the administration is committed to finding solutions to remedy that.
They have access to the Trump accounts, those are children of those illegal aliens?
That's not something I've discussed directly with the president, so I don't want to speak out of turn on that. As you know, Carrie, all American citizen children are able to access the Trump accounts as it stands right now.
Karoline.
Sure, go ahead.
Thank you very much, Mark Stone from Sky News. Can I switch to Iran, please? Specifically, the Manab school attack. 120 children dead, 26 of their teachers. A Sky News investigation released today points to all this being a tragic mistake by America, by the US military. So could you explain, please, why the president is repeatedly saying it wasn't America when he says also that he hasn't even seen the report?
I can't speak to the Sky News investigation respectfully because I have not read it. All I can speak to is what the president has said as I speak on his behalf, and the investigation continues, and we would defer you to the Department of War for further questions on.
Do you mind following up, if I may?
Sure.
I just want to understand.
It's not going to change.
I just want to understand why he consistently says it wasn't us, we didn't do this, when all the evidence and indeed the preliminary report, and we've spoken to a military insider who says this was human error.
Well, that's the president's opinion, and at the very same time, he has said the Department of War is investigating the matter, and we would defer you to them for any questions with respect to the investigation, which obviously has not been released yet. I would defer you to them for further questions on it. But I think the president feels that way because he knows that our military always acts in good faith and absolutely never targets civilians or children, unlike the other side of this conflict, Iran, who is well known for killing women and children and innocent people in their country for a very long time. So you should focus on that in your reporting. Dan.
Thanks, Caroline. Welcome back. Another World Cup question, which a bit pains me. The President Trump had some harsh words for Spain at the NATO summit last week about their spending. Does that mean he's going to be supporting Argentina Sunday?
Danny, it is a really good question, and I'm disappointed in myself for not asking the president before I came out here, knowing you would probably ask. I haven't talked to him about it, but we'll get you an answer on that. You're welcome to ask him yourself at some point before the game. I'm sure you'll see him, and I'm sure he'll have a fun answer for you on it. Sure, in the middle. Go ahead. Sure, Jasmine, go ahead.
Thank you. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Back on the teleprompter issue, Notice reported earlier this year that Kalshi was inaccessible on the Wi-Fi that journalists here at the White House have access to. Are staffers back in the West Wing and other parts of the EOB, et cetera, do they have access to Kalshi and Play Market on their Wi-Fi?
On our work computers? Honestly, I've never tried, so I don't know. But I'm happy to go try and get you an answer on that. In the back, Reagan. Sure.
I just wonder,
Jasmine, go ahead, and then Reagan.
Are there any other White House staffers or people within the administration who are suspected of also placing bets on Kalshi or Polymarket or other things with some of this privileged information?
Not to my knowledge, not that I've been made aware of. And as you saw, I think this played out exactly how it should. Kalshi notified the CFTC of suspicious activity. They investigated that, identified the individual, and he will now no longer be working at the White House. So I think that answers all the questions on this matter. Reagan.
Caroline, I have a question for you on the Save America Act. We'll start with Graham, and then a quick question on Iran.
Sure.
Trump said in one of his final conversations with the late Senator Graham that he was talking about the Save America Act and that he felt like they were in a great position with it. Do you anticipate that the Senate is going to be more aggressive to push the Save America Act in light of the fact that it was so important to Senator Graham so close to his death?
Sure. Well, since I haven't had the opportunity, let me just express my sincere condolences to Senator Graham's staff and his family. He was beloved by so many here at the White House, especially the president. And I know that the news of his sudden passing was just tragic to all of us, especially the president, who considered him a dear friend. The Save America Act, as I said, Reagan, is of vital importance to this president, and he wants to see it move forward. I understand that Capitol Hill and Speaker Johnson are moving forward with attaching as many elements of the Save America Act as possible to the Budget Reconciliation 3.0. Here we go. The president is supportive of that process, and he hopes that Republicans will vote for this important piece of legislation. The Budget Reconciliation bill not only will address the Save America Act, but also ensure important aid for our farmers and our war fighters, which the president supports as well. Bracken.
Karoline, welcome back.
Thank you.
On the Kalshi situation, I have just a few questions on that.
Sure.
This has been accused of making trades around the president's speeches for months. I mean, this has been going on since at least earlier this year, maybe even before that. Did the White House counsel have any awareness that this was going on with this individual? And if not,
no.
So if no, why not? Is there any sort of plan in place to try to figure this out, to see if anyone else is doing this, or to track future people from, see if they're making these types of bets in the White House? Any discussions around that?
Look, there are very strict ethical guidelines here at the White House that explicitly state not to do this. And the White House counsel's office makes that clear to all of us who sign up to work in government on behalf of the president. So I think there has been a plan in place. This individual unfortunately violated the plan, and therefore he's paying the consequences for it. I don't know why there's further questions.
Let's not follow this, but then doesn't that leave open the possibility, even though there are the rules, there's no disputing there are strict rules on this, but if there are no mechanisms in place, and then I'm not saying that there should and should not be, but if there are none in place to try to track this happening inside the White House and inside the executive branch of the government, doesn't that leave open a possibility for this to keep happening or happening again, and these people making bets like this inside the administration?
Again, there are very strict ethical requirements required by all staffers and officials here at the White House, and if they are violated, people will pay consequences for that, as you're seeing with this case. Libby.
Oh, I love that.
Thank you.
I have a question about Senator McConnell, but first on Iran. President Trump has now greenlit strikes on Iran for nearly every day this week. Does the White House describe negotiations more at a standstill or essentially completely over?
Well, I've spoken with the president about this as recently as an hour ago. Iran very much continues to talk to the United States of America and express that they want to make a deal with us because they are suffering devastating blows on behalf of our United States military. The reason, and this is important for the American people to understand, the reason for the recent strikes over the course of the last several days is because Iran violated the Memorandum of Understanding that we struck with them. Specifically, in the Memorandum of Understanding that they signed, they were not to fire on commercial vessels moving through the Strait of Hormuz. And unfortunately, they have made the tragic decision for them to do that. And President Trump is not going to sit by and allow these active acts of terrorism to take place in the Strait without ensuring Iran pays consequences for that. And that's what we are witnessing right now.
And about this within the last hour, I mean, does he essentially seem fed up with these negotiations? And can you explain why the American people should think that a deal with Iran would even be worthwhile at this point, given the fact that they broke it already?
Well, look at how bad they are behaving. It just proves the president's initial point for launching Operation Epic Fury in the first place. Iran can never obtain a nuclear weapon. That's why he launched Operation Epic Fury. And they have suffered devastating blows to their military and their economy as a result. The president is always open and willing to diplomacy. He is the peace through strength president after all. After Operation Epic Fury, the conclusion of it, we did move forward into a diplomatic phase, if you will. But unfortunately, Iran has since violated that. They have expressed they still want to make a deal to the president. We're talking to them. But again, the president is not going to allow them to fire on ships in the Strait without paying a consequence for that. And I think just one more point, I think throughout this entire endeavor, the president has proved not just to Iran, but to the entire world that we can hit Iran anytime, anywhere, any place. And their ability to defend themselves has been essentially wiped out because of this president and Operation Epic Fury in the first place. I'm sure. Lena, go ahead.
Thank you so much. Welcome back.
Thank you.
2 questions for you. If I can read 2 comments, one made by President Trump and one made by the Vice President on Iran.
President Trump recently said, as far as I'm concerned, it's just a waste of time dealing with them. They're liars. There's something wrong with them. They are cuckoo. They are scum, sick people, vicious, violent people. And then Vice President Vance went on Joe Rogan last night, and he said, I'm very frustrated by the Americans and frankly by people in other countries who say you cannot negotiate with the Iranians. So your response to these contradictions, because I think you can understand how that's confusing for Americans with this mixed messaging. And then second question for you, at least 6 Americans are still detained in Iran. Will President Trump make this conditional, a point of condition in continuing these conversations with the country, as well as political prisoners, and also people that are still being executed in Iran to this day?
Sure. To your second question, I'll never create a red line or a condition on behalf of the president without his blessing. I haven't heard him say that, but obviously ensuring the return of Americans wrongfully detained or held hostage all over this world remains a priority for him, and he has done so in a tremendous way over the course of the last year and a half. Americans from all over the world have returned home thanks to this president and the efforts of his national security team. To your first question about the comments between the president and the vice president, respectfully, I do think you're taking comments from different times throughout this conflict and kind of asking me if these are contradictory of each other. I can tell you the president, vice president are on the exact same page about where we are right now in this conflict. And the fact that you do see elements of what's remaining in the Iranian regime that are more willing to make a deal, and then other elements who are not so maybe willing to make a deal, shows that Operation Epic Fury was incredibly effective because we neutered their ability to communicate with one another, and they are a fragmented system. They are not the once very strong, powerful terrorist state that they were before this operation, which was one of the ultimate goals. So we'll continue to work through the process. And as I said, the president will hold them accountable when they turn their back on the words that they state to the United States. But he is always open to diplomacy at the very same time.
Thank you, Karoline. Sure. Regarding the president's speech tonight, he's been in office over 540 days now. If what he says is tonight is backed up by evidence, why hasn't anyone been charged?
Well, he hasn't revealed it yet. He hasn't declassified the documents yet, and you will see what he says tonight, and then we'll move forward appropriately from there.
Tonight from the Justice Department?
I don't speak on behalf of the Justice Department, Caitlin. You know that.
Rachel, telling my allies, will there be charges?
You'll have to ask the Justice Department. I don't charge people. I just speak on behalf of the president. Rachel.
Thanks, Karoline. Welcome back. Just a point of clarification really quick. On the staffer who is accused of profiting off of the president's speeches, you still no longer be working here. Is he on administrative leave, or is he going to be fired after that's over?
He's on unpaid administrative leave right now.
Okay. And just to follow up on the president's speech tonight, I mean, we've been talking to a lot of Republicans over on Capitol Hill. They have said that focusing on the economy is the right way to go ahead of the midterm elections. They believe that's what voters care most about. What does the president say to Republicans who think that focusing on the 2020 election, election integrity, all of these issues right now is not the right approach so close to the election?
Again, you guys have not heard the speech yet, so I would digress with the criticism until you actually hear what the president is going to say and what he's going to say when he addresses the American public. I would also add again that the administration, and especially this president, are able to walk and chew gum at the same time and tackle a number of issues on a number of different subjects every single day. We see that president do that, working around the clock on foreign policy, on domestic policy, all of the time. You all report on it. You have to keep up with it. So I think you can agree with me on that point.
Yes.
And I would also add, the president will continue to be traveling all around the country to talk about the economy. We were just in Pennsylvania a couple weeks ago touring a Mack truck facility, which has been greatly strengthened and enriched because of this president's economic policies over the last year and a half. And he loves doing that, and he will continue to do so.
Jennifer, go ahead. We have seen with the increased news, right? So real decrease in traffic through commercial traffic through the Strait of Hormuz. What is the U.S. doing right now to facilitate flows through the Strait of Hormuz and preemptively address the risk that Houthis will actually choke off the Red Sea oil route and that prices will increase further before November?
Sure. Well, two separate questions. First, let me address what's happening in the Strait right now. We know that there is a blockade of ships directed by the president for ships entering and departing Iranian ports only. This has been fully implemented and is in full force. This blockade was reimposed due to Iran's inability to honor their agreement with the United States of America. More than 10,000 U.S. sailors, Marines, and airmen, along with 2 aircraft carriers and more than 20 warships and dozens of aircraft, are executing the blockade mission as we speak. And during the first 24 hours of the blockade, U.S. CENTCOM has redirected 2 compliant commercial vessels and disabled 1 non-compliant vessel. So, look, the strait is open for ships that are not traveling to and from Iranian ports specifically, and the U.S. Navy is there to ensure that can take place. With respect to gas prices, as you know, the price of oil right now is approximately $80 a barrel, maybe a little less. Before I came out here, that's what it was at. Gas prices are down approximately 60 cents a gallon off the peak of this conflict. And the president was honest with the American people from the beginning. There may be temporary disruptions in the oil market, but what we haven't seen is what all of the naysayers said, that there would be massive increases in the price of oil that so many warned about. And that's in large part because of the president's domestic energy policies here at home to revamp our domestic production here, but also the administration has taken many swift actions to mitigate these temporary disruptions. As you know, we've released oil through our SPR, the Jones Act waiver, which has been incredibly effective, fuel environmental waivers. We also President signed the Defense Production Act to restart California oil production. So all of these very swift and mighty actions on behalf of this administration have led to a rather stable oil market, and the president will continue to do all he can to ensure prices come down, stay stable for the American people and the American consumer until the end of this conflict. And ultimately, I think Americans should keep in mind why we're doing this in the first place, to ensure that Iran, a terror state, can never obtain a nuclear weapon. Dasha, go ahead.
Hi, nice to see you back.
You too.
2 questions, one on tonight and one on immigration. It strikes me listening to the conversation in this room about Iran, given the questions that folks on both sides of the aisle have about strategy and endgame, given that the United States has intensified strikes on Iran, typically in a time of conflict, when the president gives an address to the nation, you would expect him to address this conflict. Number one, will he talk about Iran? And why is that not the major topic of his speech? Does he believe that the SAVE Act and the 2020 election integrity are more important right now?
Well, no, it's not a matter of importance. It's just a matter of timing. The president will be making a very important announcement with respect to the integrity of our elections. However, it is also very possible at the top of the speech he will mention the current situation with Iran and also the economy as well. As you all know, President Trump is a man of his own word, and he sometimes is thinking about these things up until he walks out. But we have had conversations about him addressing a range of topics, and that could very well be possible tonight. Again, this is all more reason for all of you to carry the speech live and for the American people to tune in tonight so they can hear directly from the the president and draw their own conclusions. Go ahead.
Immigration, Karoline, sorry, Karen, to add the immigration question real quick.
Sure.
Sorry. 3 men were killed in ICE encounters in less than a week. As a result, DHS announced that it would end vehicle stops, and then President Trump urged them to change their position. Can you confirm whether vehicle stops are back on, and is the administration doing anything more to prevent these kinds of deaths, maybe accelerating distribution of body cameras which weren't present in this case?
So a couple of things. Vehicle stops are continuing. Verbal guidance has been given to all field offices across the country by the Department of Homeland Security. The President and the Secretary of Homeland Security are on the same page that vehicle stops are a necessary tool that ICE agents need in order to continue their deportation campaign of the worst illegal alien criminals from our country. With respect to body cameras, I know there's been some questions about that in recent days. Over half of all ICE field offices now do have body cameras, and the remainder of the field offices are expected within 60 days. It's been a slower rollout than we would have hoped, but that's because of the Democrats' decision to shut down DHS for several weeks. So we expect to fully execute on the promise of body cams to all field offices across the country very soon. Karen.
Yes, Caroline. On the parasite outbreak related to produce, can you give an update on the administration's response to this? Are there federal officials on the ground in the hardest hit states right now doing any testing of production facilities or farms to try to figure out where this outbreak has started?
Well, what I can tell you, having been back at the White House for just a couple of short weeks, I've been in meetings on this very topic, and I can tell you the White House is closely monitoring the situation, has a handle on the situation. We're committed to providing the CDC and the FDA the resources that they need, and we urge all Americans to follow CDC guidance on properly washing and cooking raw ingredients to prevent this foodborne illness. As you know, there has been an unusually high number of cases. There are typically thousands of cases of this outbreak every year, but there has been an unusually higher number, and that's why we're working with the FDA and other partners at the federal, state, and local level to increase detection methods, provide the guidance, and then also, most importantly, trace the outbreak back to its original source, which we are currently in the process of doing.
Permanent leadership at the CDC and FDA and any funding cuts, has that slowed the response to figure out where this outbreak has started?
No, we've talked to the CDC and FDA specifically about that, and not at all. They have the resources they need to make sure that Americans are fully informed and protected from this illness during this time.
Karoline, please.
Karoline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Last year, the administration signed a critical minerals deal, mining deal with Kazakhstan for a little-known U.S. company. It was an agreement that President Trump and Howard Lutnick got tentative approval for with Kazakhstan's president in September. 6 days before the deal was signed, which was in November, the president's older sons with other partners took a 20% investment in a company related to the deal. What did the president know about his son's involvement in this arrangement? When did he find out about it?
From my understanding, Maggie, nothing. I've spoken to the president and his family about this. They would absolutely never do anything that would put the president in a place of a conflict of interest. And we have timelines to give you and to provide you, which we did to the news media at the time when this story broke, to prove that very point that I just made.
Sorry, just one second. So the president did not learn about it until it was in the media? That was when he came out?
That's my understanding of the matter, yes.
Go on, thank you very much.
I'll go to you after just...
Thank you.
Here, sure.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Me?
Why don't we just...
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry to end the
Very, very welcome back.
Okay. Thank you.
Yesterday, Iran launched a drone attack against U.S. facilities in Erbil, threatening American personnel and the Kurdistan region, one of the American closest partners in the Middle East. What is your message to those responsible? And are you still with your loyal ally in the Middle East and at least helping them to defend itself?
Who launched the attacks, you're saying?
Iran,
yes.
Kurdistan region.
Well, I think I've addressed that previously in saying that the Iran has unfortunately shown to violate the word that they struck with the President of the United States. They're paying consequences for that and the strikes that the President has authorized in the recent days.
That line, you were with the President in Ankara for the NATO summit, and there Ukraine was one of...
I was not, actually.
Oh, you were not? Okay, yeah, but the issue of Ukraine was one of the most important topics there, and the situation is escalating between the two sides in these days, but there are still efforts. Can you give us more information about where we are and how the local power breakers, including Turkey, are involving in order to solve the problem?
Sure. I'll check with the National Security Council and get back to you on that with more specific guidance. What I can tell you is I know the president greatly enjoyed his visit to Turkey and not just his participation in the NATO summit, where he applauded the United States for getting our NATO allies to step up and pay their fair share for our defense. But also he greatly enjoyed his time with President Erdogan in Turkey and appreciates the bilateral relationship between our two countries.
Karoline, welcome back.
Thanks.
Contrary to what the mainstream media is reporting, Americans at ISP2 care deeply about election integrity.
This is true.
Why do you think the mainstream media is so fearful of tonight's speech and anything to do with election interference? And why are they attempting to discredit President Trump's speech before they even heard it? And lastly, what's your message to AOC, who is asking for President Trump, the mainstream media, to actually censor the sitting president's speech tonight?
Yeah, I think that the mainstream media should air the president's speech and allow the American people to draw their own conclusions from it. Again, I think it's important that the American public hears directly from the President of the United States on a topic that, to your point, is very near and dear to the hearts of many Americans across the country, the integrity of our elections. This should be a nonpartisan, non-controversial issue, and I think you'll hear the president talk about that tonight. So we'll see you then. Thank you.
Yep, thank you. He was telling the president that he wanted to faithfully ally.
Good evening. Before we begin, I'm proud to report that our country is safer, stronger, and far wealthier than it has ever been before. We are doing great. Less than 2 years ago, we inherited an economic and social disaster. After the worst inflation in 48 years, the wide open borders with millions and millions of people pouring in from all over the world, including criminals of all types, and 11,888 murders, many of whom killed more than one person. We had transgender for everybody, men and women sports, crime ravaging our cities, and the whole world was laughing at us as a nation, but not anymore. 2 years ago, our country was dead. Now, we are the hottest country anywhere in the world. America is respected like we have never been respected before. We have more money being invested in the United States than at any time in the history of our country. More Americans are working today than ever before. This week it was announced that inflation saw the largest monthly decline in more than 6 years. Just happened. It was just given out. The media reported it, and we accept it. The best in 6 years. The tax cuts in our great, big, beautiful bill are saving hardworking families thousands and thousands of dollars, like with the provisions, no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and no tax on Social Security for our great seniors, along with the interest deduction on a loan used to purchase a car, but only if that car is made in America, and a 100% expensing for our job-creating businesses. Our stock markets are at their highest point in many years, but we can actually say of all time. And your 401ks, pensions, and retirement accounts are setting records every single day, the highest in history. For years, we paid the highest price for prescription drugs anywhere in the world. Now we pay the lowest price under my most favored nation's policy because I was able to get the rest of the world and the pharmaceutical companies to act responsibly. Drug prices are coming down by 70, 80, and 90%. TrumpRx.gov, this will ultimately reduce the cost of health care. You have to go to TrumpRx.gov and take advantage of it. But the cost of health care is coming way down because of what we've done with prescription drugs. And with Trump accounts, every child in America now has access to a tax-free investment account to save for their future. Billions and billions of dollars are being invested, put in by companies and individuals to take care of our children so that at age 18, they will have potentially hundreds of thousands of dollars in their account, and they'll get off to a great start in life. So for that, go to TrumpAccounts.gov and sign up your child or any child you'd like to sign up. Our previously wide open borders have been transformed into the most secure borders in the history of our country, with 0 illegal aliens being admitted to the United States in the past 14 months. That is 0. Nobody thought it was possible. We had the worst border in the history of our country, and now we have the best. Crime is plummeting nationwide, with the murder rate at its lowest level since 1900, or more than 125 years ago. We're making a record investment in our armed forces, and we have the strongest and most powerful military by far anywhere in the world. I built it during my first term, and unfortunately, we're forced to use it now. We won in Venezuela, which is now working with us to produce millions and millions of barrels of oil. We are likewise winning big in Iran, and you will see the fruits of that labor very, very shortly. America is back and doing really well, but we still have a major challenge that must be urgently addressed, because no country can be great without fair and honest elections. You have to trust your country, because if there can be no trust, there can be no greatness. And that's very simple. No trust, no greatness. For many years, I've called for bold, swift, and decisive action to protect the integrity of America's elections. Every American deserves to know that when they cast their vote, that vote will be counted accurately in a system, and that is to make that system secure, one where cheating and interference are not just difficult, but virtually impossible. Unfortunately, the system we have today falls catastrophically short of that standard. Tonight, I'm announcing the immediate declassification and release of critical intelligence revealing shocking vulnerabilities in our election infrastructure. This evidence shows that the election system we have dangerously exposes and really exposes like levels never thought possible to hacking, exploitation, and foreign interference. Just as disturbingly, this vital information has for many years been covered up and hidden from you, the American people, our beautiful, our great American people. But that all changes right now. The documents we will release starting tonight have been gathered by the White House Government Transparency Task Force, a great group of people, along with the staff of the President's Intelligence Advisory Board, supported by our top intelligence agency chiefs, who have all personally reviewed the findings. We are presenting this evening and fully confirmed their authenticity. You can see these documents for yourself at whitehouse.gov. That's whitehouse.gov. Go check it out. Our purpose in disclosing this information is not to weaken confidence in election, but to earn that confidence by confronting vulnerabilities and correcting them very, very quickly. And that's what we're doing. The documents cover 5 major areas of concern. First, they show that over a period of years, starting during the 2020 election cycle, the People's Republic of China carried out what is believed to be the largest compromise of election data in history, resulting in China's illicit acquisition of 220 million U.S. voter files. That information includes names, addresses, phone numbers, political party preferences, and other sensitive data that would be needed to register to vote and engage in other nefarious activities, which is exactly what was happening. This data loss presents an unprecedented election security nightmare. The intelligence even shows that China assigned a data exploitation unit specifically to this new project. Compounding the travesty, the second set of documents we are releasing reveals that members of the deep state, very, very famous group of people, in many cases, in our intelligence agency work to actively suppress and downplay information about the extent of China's sinister election meddling, covering it up from both the president and the American people like nobody thought was possible. U.S. spy agencies began learning about the compromise of voter registration files in 2020 when they discovered that tens of millions of voter data, think of that, tens of millions of voters' data in 18 states have been bought, stolen, or hacked by China. Yet those responsible for sounding the alarm instead kept the information secret and hidden. They did not disclose to me as president or to anyone else, and to the best of our knowledge, they did not inform Congress. In fact, all they kept saying is, this is the most secure election in the history of our country, a standard, very pat line that was divvied out to say. The cover-up of this colossal security breach is even more disturbing in light of the additional information showing that China engaged in other election-related activities to undermine my first administration and our 2020 campaign. They did not want, and they just didn't want it. They fought like hell not to have it, Donald Trump, to win, and for good reason. As the documents we are releasing show, CIA reporting explicitly stated, and I quote, In mid-2018, the Chinese Communist Party's policy was to leverage all domestic and foreign elements that were opposed to the U.S. president in an effort to reduce the U.S. president's votes and make him resign or prevent his re-election. Isn't that nice? Also, in mid-2018, China was working to influence the results of the U.S. midterm elections and later the results of the 2020 presidential election itself. Separately, in mid-2019, the Chinese government's strategy against the United States was focused on undermining domestic confidence in the U.S. president. They wanted to just make you sound like your president wasn't so hot, when actually your president has done a great job, and they did everything possible to do exactly that. Going on, this document says, and this is by the CIA, the strategy included efforts to use Chinese contacts with big U.S. companies to influence U.S. business leaders to turn against the President of the United States of America. The Chinese government sought to identify U.S. journalists who had reported negatively on the U.S. president and pay them large sums of money to write more negative articles about him, as many as they could, and they didn't care what they said. The Chinese government wanted U.S. president to lose the next election, and the reason they wanted me to lose is because they knew I was wise to them, charged them billions and billions of dollars worth of tariffs, and built the strongest military anywhere in the world. We have the strongest military anywhere in the world. These are exact quotes from the CIA reporting. The name of the person doing the quote is now under review, but it gets even worse. Raw intelligence obtained by the FBI in 2020, yet buried by rogue bureaucrats, stated that China's activities even included an attempt to manufacture illegal ballots for Joe Biden. Documents show that during this period, dozens of significant CIA and NSA reports about China's election targeting were kept out of the presidential briefing. These were briefings I would get almost every day. Everything was kept out that was of importance. One email among intelligence analysts admitted that they had, quote, deliberately massaged the presidential daily briefing to withhold information regarding Chinese activities related to the election. Another official inside the FBI wrote that she was running, quote, a shadow government, unquote, to keep intelligence about China's election meddling from becoming known and to keep it away from the honorable press. Other officials who witnessed such efforts perceived the motivations to be blatantly political. Recently, we found significant numbers of burn bags in formation, and this is a group of bags that were used to destroy information given by President Barack Hussein Obama to be burned. It was supposed to be burned. These bags were supposed to be at a different level by different people, incinerated and checked, but it never happened. Maybe we got lucky. We believe this was not done on purpose, but rather through gross incompetence of the people that were supposed to burn the bags. But the findings are stunning. Today, I'm asking the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Justice, the FBI, and the CIA to investigate how and why such crucial information was hidden, to fire those involved in the cover-up, and to file criminal charges, if appropriate, against these people. Yet concealing China's meddling was only the beginning. The third set of documents we are releasing proves that for many years, Americans were blatantly lied to about the security of our election infrastructure, including electronic voting machines and ballot counting systems. Dishonest, almost all. They're vulnerable and they're easily compromised, and people within our government knew that. Tonight, we're publishing a series of previously classified U.S. intelligence community assessments and other reports proving that our government has long known these machines are extremely exposed to attack. As one assessment states, we judge that The United States adversaries, including at a minimum Russia, China, Iran, North Korea, as well as non-state groups, have the capability to compromise U.S. election infrastructure. That's unquote, but that's some statement, isn't it? Made by supposedly great patriots of our country. The document goes on to further state that, quote, we assess that centralized election-related data repositories, such as voter registration databases, poll books, and other official election websites, are most vulnerable to exploitation, and adversaries could use this access to these systems to disrupt election processes within the United States of America. Tonight, we're releasing all of those findings, and spanning from January 2020 to June 2026. This is a cyber threat aimed at the very heart of our democracy. Many people have questioned whether it could actually be possible to electronically manipulate vote totals or change election results on these terrible machines. Today, we are releasing documents that show the CIA obtained reporting of a specific plot to do a big number in favor of the corrupt Maduro regime in Venezuela. And that's exactly what happened, conspiring to digitally rig their own country's elections in 2020, and that's what they did. This reporting included precise details about methods to regime develop to digitally alter vote totals in ways that could not be detected even with an audit, no matter how deep they went. This intelligence underscores why we must take urgent action to ensure that our own system can never, ever be hacked or compromised like it was in the past. The fourth set of documents reveals that even when significant evidence of fraud has been detected, it has been buried and covered up. Among the disclosures tonight are FBI files detailing evidence of alleged fraud by a large-scale voter registration operation in Michigan. In 2020, Michigan State Police raided a Democrat Get Out the Vote organization, corrupt group in Muskegon. And we're so concerned by what they found. They were just so concerned, they couldn't believe it, actually, that they contacted the FBI in Detroit. The documents state that some canvassers admitted to FBI agents that they signed voter registration forms in other people's names, submitted fraudulent registration for people who did not exist, and received gift cards tied to their number of applications that they produced. In other words, it was pay, play, and cheat. The FBI agents working on the case believe that crimes were committed, yet the Biden Department of Justice slow-walked the investigation and killed it. Tonight, I'm asking the FBI director to ensure that the matter is fully investigated and to work with the Department of Justice to prosecute those responsible for any crimes. Finally, to reveal just how vulnerable our elections continue to be, we are releasing the results of a stunning investigation by the Department of Homeland Security. According to the DHS review, state voter rolls and public records, they identified approximately 278,000 non-citizens who are registered to vote in federal elections. Since Democrat states refuse to share their voter files, the real number is actually much higher than that. Yet, even this limited analysis found more than 250,000 foreigners illegally registered to vote. Put together, these disclosures reveal an election system so broken and so vulnerable that no one can possibly defend it. It is not defensible. Hundreds of millions of U.S. voter files are in the hands of foreign governments. Our machines and ballot counting systems are exposed to hacking and manipulation and corruption. China and other countries have been trying to meddle in our elections. Evidence of fraud has been buried. Hundreds of thousands of non-citizens and dead people are listed and active on the voter rolls, and yet we still have elections with no voter ID, no proof of citizenship, and tens of millions of ballots floating aimlessly through the mail. As one example of the insanity, California's recent election for mayor of LA and governor was held on June 2nd, a long time ago, but it was just completed a few days ago on July 10th. Think of that, much more than 1 month. Took a month to count the votes. I wonder what they were doing. This is worse than any third world country. There's no third world country that has elections like we have. In a rare move, NBC and ABC Fake News have both said that they would not cover this speech. They knew what it was about because of the fact that they don't like the topic, because they know how corrupt our system is and they don't want to reveal it. They and others in the media are part of a plot. They want to continue this fraud for whatever reason. They want to keep it going. They want to protect the radical left. They can't have a great country, and that's true. You can't have a great country without free and fair elections. Fraud like this should mean a revocation of their licenses. They use our public multi-billion-dollar in value airways for absolutely no money. They pay nothing. All we want is honesty in our elections and honesty in reporting. They pay nothing for multi-billion-dollar assets. Great damage has been done to our country. Our elections were left vulnerable to being rigged and stolen, and the trust of the American people was lost. This cannot be allowed to continue. Every American, whether you're a Republican, Democrat, Independent, or otherwise, should be able to agree that we deserve the most secure, honest, and fair election system anywhere in the world. Secure elections should be a partisan, really, we should be together, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, everybody, and it should not be a partisan issue. It should cause to unite us, not to divide us. This should be a cause. We should be united, not divided. In light of the brand new and irrefutable information I have revealed tonight, my administration is in the process of notifying the states whose election data was compromised by the People's Republic of China and many others. We will be working closely to mitigate any harm, and we're taking swift action to ensure that sensitive voter data is better protected so we can never be bought, we can never be hacked, and we can never watch a stolen election again. Tomorrow, the Secretary of Homeland Security will hold a briefing to outline his department's recent work confirming cyber vulnerabilities in our electronic voting systems. They are bad. We're in the process of informing governors, senators, and members of Congress of potential issues in their states. If you look at voting today, it's in such bad shape in so many states, and we are committing to fix it. And we're also committing to be working with those states and local jurisdictions to help them fix and patch known technical vulnerabilities before the midterm elections. We have very important elections coming up. We want those elections to be honest. I've also ordered DHS to notify every state about non-citizens on their voter rolls and direct them to remove all ineligible voters from the lists immediately. But most importantly, addressing this crisis of election security demands that Congress must pass the Save America Act. How easy is that to do unless you want to cheat? The only reason you wouldn't do it is you want to cheat because your policies are so bad and your candidates are so pathetic that you can't get away or can't get elected any other way. This landmark bill requires that all voters must show photo voter ID. How simple is that? Could I have your photo, please? Photo voter ID. All voters must provide proof of citizenship. Are you a citizen of our country, please? And hopefully there will be no corrupt mail-in ballots, which if you watched California and so many other places, mail-in ballots are inherently corrupt. So you would have no mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military deployment, or travel if you're going away on business or vacation. These reforms are urgently needed to stop the vulnerabilities that I've mentioned. To all Americans, I ask you to pick up your phone tomorrow, call your representatives in the House and Senate, and demand that they pass the Save America Act without delay. Together, we will restore faith and confidence in our country, and we will be bigger, better, and stronger than ever before. Thank you. God bless you. God bless our great military. And God bless America. Thank you very much.